Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter, and you can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
South Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And that sound effect you heard comes from none other than our man in Brooklyn, Brooklyn's finest, one agent underscore 70.
What's up, everybody? You can find me on at agent underscore 70 on Twitter and Instagram.
No! Sleep to Brooklyn!
Wait, did I not say it? I'm so sorry.
This is what happens when I start listening to the show back. I'm like, oh, Roddykat's not plugging me. All right, fine, I'll plug
No,
myself.
I actually, I'm usually do. Like, but well, I guess even if I don't, I do it at the end of the show. But I was like, wait, I just totally just blanked. Like, did I not just do it?
So
But
funny,
anyway.
folks. We've been doing this for so long.
Yeah, it's kind of, I know, right?
And
Professionals
that's a
here.
distinct reminder. Right, I was about to say that is the distinct reminder of the anniversary that we have coming up.
Indeed. This is episode 399. Next week will be 400. As we said at the end of last show, we'll probably repeat at the end of this show. So, we got plans. We don't have anything big, but we got a little something special for some folks out there, I think.
We are totally up to $3.99, folks, for real.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. And I guess it kind of goes with a little bit of a caveat because I remember when we actually started keeping track of the numbers, even though we're still not entirely sure. Like, we might be give or take one or two, put it that way. But still, yeah, officially we definitely got 300 in the bank, or 400 in the bank.
Hell yeah.
So, shout out to us.
Let's pat ourselves on the back.
I mean, sometimes you got to, if no one else will, you got to, But yeah, look at definitely if you don't check it. Well, first I will go ahead and say that shout out to everybody who is either watching us on Twitch, that's twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles, or on the Click Nation YouTube channel, that's youtube.com/the Click Nation, DKLIQNATION, where we record live every Thursday night. I probably should start doing that up front a little bit more often, but I figure like you catch us one way, you catch us the other,
Absolutely.
So,
But
anyway,
make sure to hit like and subscribe because you want to see us pop up in your notifications.
Absolutely. Would you not want to see these faces? Ding. Oh. But anyway, we are going to start off with books of the week, as we tend to do, with there's only 2 M's, not 3. Immortal Hulk, number 42.
This book is written by Al Ewing, and there is a host of artists and inkers on this story because each of them is drawing a specific sequence in the book. I'm just going to list them in the order that they appear. On art, we have Alex Lins, Adam Gorham, Rachel Stott, Joe Bennett, and Rui Jose. And on colors, we have Chris O'Halloran, Paul Mounts. They basically split up the colors on these story sequences.
Indeed. And as we were talking before the show, like, yeah, this we've been on this book since the get. So what I'm about to say shouldn't be any surprise if you've listened to us for any length, this or watched us for any length of time. And this book has continued to be great. More times than sometimes more than others, but still consistently some good stuff. And it never ceases to surprise us on some things. And I say all that to say that this issue, while a little bit lighter on action, still kind of caught us with a surprise. Because as folks may or may not know, Immortal Hulk is ending with issue 50.
Right.
So which means 42 is like, yeah, we don't have much else to go, but at the same time, they're still managing to do some stuff in probably starting to tie up some loose ends that's been kind of lingering for the longest.
Right, and leading to whatever climax in the story that Al Ewing has up his sleeve. So it's a mix of both of those.
Mm-hmm. So that being the case, there's a character that's been with the series for pretty much the whole length of time that we are just finding out some new information on.
Right, it's a big reveal regarding Jackie McGee. Not
Mm-hmm.
spoiling anything, but it's a big reveal regarding her.
Absolutely.
And a change. And actually, this is a minor spoiler, but there's a change in her job status. It kind of sucks.
Actually, there's a change in a couple of people's job status.
Right.
Of course it is.
Exactly, because what Roddykat is referring to is Gamma Flight is dealing with Henry Gyrick and the consequences of Joe Fixit Hulk escaping from the Alpha Flight space station in the past several issues. There's a couple of other developments involving Gyrick because he apparently puts together a backup team that's going to be familiar to Hulk readers. It's something that Roddykat was very prescient about and predicted many, many moons ago when we were talking about this book.
Yeah, and to be fair, like you said earlier, it was like, yeah, we kind of one, we kind of knew it was coming. We would have known this was coming if we read solicits, but also we've talked about it before, the fact that, you know, the way they've been bringing up folks like left and right, it was only a matter of time before these folks showed up.
Right. It was bound to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the last thing we can mention about this book is that the leader makes a connection. And unfortunately or fortunately, because I know that Al Ewing loves to quote scripture in this book, quotes a great gospel hymn that we all know. It's found its place within pretty much all sects of Christianity, and when I read that, I got chills.
Right, I had to laugh at that part. I was like, okay, that's amusing.
I absolutely got chills. You know, we've all heard this particular song sung in every different set, like several different settings and arrangements, more gospel, more country. I'm not a big fan of the country, but we've heard it in a million different ways. And to see, that particular refrain or that particular verse, spoken by, the characters, and I mentioned the plural in that.
Correct.
Was, like I said, definitely gave me chills. I definitely got the, I don't know if that's the intended feeling that Al Ewing wanted to give, but I got it.
Right. Well, we're regardless of whether that was the case or not, he definitely wanted to evoke something, and surely he did in that film, like, intentionality aside. So, but yeah, that whole thing made me laugh. I was like, okay, did you really set that whole part up just to say that part? I mean, just to say that line or not? But regardless, it doesn't matter. So it's like,
I feel like that's something I want to ask Al Ewing whenever I see him at the next New York Comic Con. Like when I see him next, which is scary because I got him to sign my first 2 issues of Immortal Hulk. And by the time we see him again at New York Comic Con, Immortal Hulk will have finished 50 issues. I mean, it's my sincere hope that I see him and I will ask him, hey, in number 42, is that what you meant?
Yeah, it was like that was a pretty good, that was a pretty smooth setup, I admit. But it also seemed like it was just a setup for that line. So that was, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all. But that being the case, I'm trying to think about if was there anything else that came out. And it's like, without giving too much away. And even in that part, we were trying to figure out what the leader was trying to do. And as I say in my notes, I was like, he's basically trying to use Bruce as a gamma cerebro, seems like. But I'm not entirely sure if that was the full case or not,
Right. I wasn't 100% sure what's happening in that sequence. I know that it seemed like the leader is looking to, I guess, research both his own connection, his own gamma connection, and Bruce's.
And I guess everybody else is at the in some order.
Right.
So I guess maybe we'll see in the next issue or two where that's leading him. Cause surely, because we're coming kind of slowly coming, not even slowly, but we're starting to come into the stretch. So that's gonna have to happen in the next couple of issues. But knowing how Ewing works, we probably won't get into the last one at that, and probably even open them up with something else that's coming down the line. I would not be surprised by that.
Right. I'd be interested to see where he leaves the character at the end of this run. Right. Very interested.
Mm-hmm. And as much as I hate to bring this up, but I'm still kind of curious as to whether any of that Mitra stuff is going to play into anything.
Oh, into this run?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about it because it feels like the Maestro stuff is kind of a logical segue because he does survive. That's kind of the whole point of the story, is that he does survive a nuclear holocaust.
Right.
So, we'll see. We'll see if Peter David incorporates any of that stuff, in the next miniseries that's going to be out soon.
Right. And we know he's at the very least touched on some Immortal Hulk stuff, but not really. But there's still a couple of questions that I've had that still have not been touched on, and right. I don't know if we're ever going to get those answers, or even if they even matter at this point, honestly. So, but that being said, was that?
I said no, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, now we're gonna move on to something else. I guess let's go to Spidey. Go ahead and get that out of the way.
All right. So we are now going to discuss Amazing Spider-Man number 57, written by Nick Spencer, with pencils by Mark Bagley. And if you look at this and notice that Bagley's pencils are super tight, it's because there are literally 3 people inking him. That's John Dell, Andrew Hennessy, and Andy Owens, with colors by Rochelle Rosenberg and Edgar Delgado.
So it was another thing that we've kind of noted before the show. That there's a few books this week that have got some a gang of lineup for the creative team, especially on the art section, obviously. But no, not even obvious, but supportingly.
Right. So, I mean, I wonder if it's and this is just conjecture on my part. I wonder if it's just Marvel trying to split up the duties so that things get done, or maybe just to give some people work during COVID.
Could be. I mean, if it's the latter, I'm glad for that.
Right. And I would also mention that, and this is obviously a little backhanded compliment to Bagley. I'm not that big a fan of his art. I know Tim at TimDog98 is. If you look at his art in this issue and in the previous issues that he's done on Amazing, it's very clean. It's very all the blacks are spotted, the lines are closed because there's a gang of inkers on these books. There's a gang, and there's literally a gang of colorists because we know that Rochelle Rosenberg and Edgar Delgado can handle colors on this book by themselves easily. But because both of them are on it, they're both able to, probably put their all into these pages and really make Bagley's art look better than it has in a long time.
Right, and under normal circumstances, and I think, and that will become apparent in a couple of these books that we talked about. The reason why some of that happens is because they will have different artists for different reasons, for different, sometimes right. different timelines, different, to evoke different things. In this particular book, I don't.
That's not the case.
I guess they kind of still do that. Yeah, that's still kind of the case because thinking about what happened in the beginning.
I mean. It could be. We don't know. It's not as clearly delineated like right. it was in Immortal Hulk. Like there's literally sequences like set apart right. that you can tell, and they actually name that in the credits. But yeah, this is just me taking shots at Mark Bagley. It's not because he kind of bitched and moaned when I tried to ask him for a free sketch back when I was poor. Shots fired, Mark Bagley. What's funny is that I saw him like years later at a New York Comic Con. There ain't nobody standing in front of him, and I'm just giggling because he'd kind of come back down to earth and wasn't that popular, So
yeah,
shots fired.
But get into the story proper, though.
This is post-mortem part 2. We were
Yeah.
poking fun at this. Of
Yeah,
last
we definitely
remain.
were. But yeah, I was like, yeah. As a matter of fact, I think we even said it before the show. It was like, really, why is this lingering so much? Because like we had the postmortem last time, now it's a postmortem part 2. Like, what, you're gonna do a part 4 now? I mean, part 3 or 4? Like, get on with it. Let's keep going. Like we ain't even gotten to the next arc. Well, I guess we would after this episode, after this issue, finally.
Right.
But like all these postmortems and side issues are getting really ridiculous. But as far as the story is concerned, though, this is pretty much the aftermath of what happened last issue, and Spidey is reunited with Mary Jane and the rest of the Order, who now has a new official name, I suppose. I guess that's what that is.
Right. It's not the first time a group of heroes have called themselves the Order.
True. Right. But unless they come up with something else later, then I guess that's that, because they felt the need to call it out. Mm-hmm. And of course, they want answers as to what's going on, and Peter can't really give it to him, and Peter's still kind of being himself. Then we cut to pretty much the end of last issue, where he breaks into I guess that's Ravencroft, where Kindred is being held by Kingpin and Norman Osborn, and he's wanting answers, rightfully so, from Norman Osborn about stuff that happened. So pretty much the most of the rest of the issue is pretty much them two hashing it out, and Spidey kind of losing it just a little bit, with Norman, before basically saying, "Look, don't you talk to me or my son or my family ever again." And he goes off, presumably, well, to get back to Mary Jane at the end of this thing. But we also, as the Order so much said in the end of this, like, yeah, we know this ain't over, so we need to find out what's going on. And then, luckily, Peter even knows at the end of this issue that it's not over, because in between the part where he leaves Norman and to the end of the issue, we get pretty much a monologue with Kindred.
Right. We find out that Kindred's capture, quote unquote, may be exactly what he wanted.
Exactly.
Maybe
which we
part of his
figure.
maybe part of his plan.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of just other things I wanted to note. The poorly colored character on the last page of last issue was in fact Spidey. Mm-hmm. That's just me taking shots at and I love Rochelle Rosenberg. She's mad cool. But yeah, whoever was coloring that page really dropped the ball. Whatchamacallit? I find it weird, but at the same time very Spider-Verse-y, not in the movie sense, but in the comic book sense, that the new Madam Web is literally on these adventures with the rest of the Order of the Web, or the Order, because it's Julia Carpenter who tells these characters, hey, you need to back off because it's not our time for answers, but it's Peter Parker's time for answers.
Right.
Oh, it's funny. It's funny to see the Madam Web character, the mantle of Madam Web, actually being an active participant in the adventure, as opposed to what we were used to seeing with the old Madam Web, who Spidey used to once in a while have to consult as an aside during his stories. So.
Right, and even in this case, it's still kind of a quote unquote active, because there's been a few different times where, and granted, it makes sense because she kind of knows what's happening to a point, why she didn't act on certain things or not.
Right. Yeah, if you get to the last page without spoiling it too much, the last page, I guess, teases the cover of the next issue, and it revolves around the return of a villain who had been shot down and had his powers taken by the Sin Eater. So that is, it's a mild spoiler because that list contains several characters, but it does hint at the return of one such character.
Right, and actually, you just reminded me of something else that I'm not to spoil this part about it, but in the midst of like I said, Spidey leaving Norman and Kendrick's whole monologue, we also see that there's been some information gained by Carly Cooper, um, and she's trying to get in contact with Mary Jane before because apparently it's something dealing with
It's something very Kindred related.
exactly. And we unfortunately don't get to find out what that information fully is because of something that happens to her.
Her
going
call
into the end
gets
of it.
disconnected or interrupted. We'll put it that way.
Yes. So, and like I said, that we'll probably won't find out for a few issues the way some of this tends to go. What that information is, or who that information is about. I guess also specifically. So,
And it seems likely that it's part of Kindred's plan as to his quote unquote capture.
right.
But yeah, just very quickly before we move on, we were commenting before the show started about how we're feeling about the direction of the Amazing Spidey book, and I have to admit that this particular storyline, not just the postmortem, but Last Remains, has proven very frustrating for me to read. And without putting words into Roddykat's mouth, he in general concurs.
That's fair enough to say. Like, yeah, usually I'm a fan of we know something's going to get somewhere, and it's good to enjoy the journey getting there. In this case, definitely it's kind of lingering a little bit too long on some stuff, and there's been a little bit, there's been a little bit too much. That's like, okay, this is very much needed to be an issue, a whole ass issue of a book. So yeah, I do definitely concur.
Yes. All righty.
So
President Bartlett.
What's next?
So you seem to have been wanting to talk about Sword.
Sure.
So we might as well go ahead and get into the X books now, or the two X books that came out this week anyway. So Sword number 2, folks.
I was about to say there is a second. Whatchamacallit? There is a second X book out this week.
Mm-hmm.
So Sword was written by our good man Al Ewing, with art by Valerio Schiti, colors by Marte Gracia. Like it or not, this is the Sword issue that crosses over with King in Black.
Yeah, except for it doesn't have the banner on it, but the cover definitely said, if you didn't pay attention to the cover, I don't know what to tell you on that one, but but the cover pretty much tells it even if there is no banner for King in Black.
Right.
But yeah, so we find Sword basically catching up with King in Black, and the part that I'm gonna go so far as to say that if you have not been reading King in Black and you, like me, don't really care but still kind of want to know what's going on, I will probably put a couple of links to some videos, because there's I don't know if you know about Variant Comics. I mean, not Variant Comics, but Variant, the YouTube channel.
I don't.
Yeah, so they do, the Variant is the kind of one of the comic book channels which they will do like, hey, here's the history of this character, this character, or that kind of stuff. But they've also been doing like, well, here's this storyline, and he's been doing the King in Black stuff since the last part of Venom at the very least. So if you want to really catch up with what's happened on almost like what we do with Treasure Editions and or our recaps, because the last couple of them all were pretty much that direct. But if you want to find out what's been going on in the pages of Venom and King in Black, definitely like I said, check out those links that I'll put in the show notes.
Right.
But that being said,
I'm doing my best to skim. Like, I skimmed a bunch of the books this week. I didn't feel like they were worth talking about. I hate to say it.
Yeah. But I think in this case, he pretty much does like the main lines. Like I haven't seen him doing any side stuff. Like, it's been like Venom and then King in Black 1 and 2.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I read those, so.
Right.
But that's good. I'm glad that's out there.
Yeah.
I don't have the wherewithal to talk about the story in full. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Same here. Like, I've been on record to say it's like I really don't care that much about King in Black, but only because of the fact that it's crossing over in the books that we actually read.
Right.
It kind of spills into our view, and
right.
Here's the case right now.
Yeah, I was about to say, as Roddykat mentioned, this book does in fact lack the banner and probably doesn't involve any of the crossover. It doesn't find itself on any of the reading checklist for King in Black, but the King in Black crossover does in fact have an impact upon the X books, including Sword. And what we find is that Abigail Brand, as the head of Sword, has a specific set of protocols in place for different eventualities, and she puts one of them into effect, namely Protocol V. We don't know what V stands for, but we definitely see that has something to do with preserving all of mutantdom in the face of a null level, like planet-wide threat.
I suspect that this directed is what you think it is, because V is also the number 5 in Latin, so that's probably
Most
given,
likely.
Yeah, and given who's involved, with that tends to make more sense. But
More than likely, that's what it is.
yeah, but we also find out, which is probably not that big of a surprise, Abigail Brand's got a little bit more Nick Fury, in her thinking. Not that she wasn't already, but you can kind of tell some of these moves she's making are also reminiscent of Nick Fury. By I got a contingency plan for this and this and this, and I got to think. She even says in the book, like, I got to think like 2-3 steps ahead, because and matter of fact, even at the end of Empire, like when she shows up, it was like, we ought to be thinking about stuff that's coming, not less the stuff that just kind of gets thrown in our lap.
Right. Doesn't she mention something about a shield or Fury like slush fund
Yes.
Or an account? So yeah, I mean, obviously she is, she's former Shield, so because Sword was a branch of Shield, so that line of thinking definitely runs in that, in the higher ups in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we see pop up, as several mutants are trying to deal with the King in Black invasion, we see Fabian Cortez, show his face yet again, more so than the first issue, and he remains the scheming, racist. We see the return of the flat scan slur come back. I don't know if you
Right.
remember that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I was like, oh no, we brought that back.
Mm-hmm. Hell, and this, wait, actually, it's not this issue. It's Marauders that a similar thing, not a similar thing, but something else actually comes up on the racist part, but not with him.
Right. And what's funny about this, and I'll leave it, like there's a lot of cool stuff happening in this issue that I don't want to spoil, but there's one thing that does happen with Fabian Cortez and Sunfire, where it makes you wonder if he's making a change in appearance to his Age of Apocalypse form.
I did kind of wonder that too. It was like, yeah, because if you know anything about Fabian Cortez, he does have the power to amp other mutants up.
Right. For a time, I guess.
For a time, right. So yeah, I would imagine once he comes down, which I know even they said in the course of this book with him himself and the data pages was like, yeah, he's kind of toned it down to where his powers weren't addictive,
Right.
in introduced into boosting folks.
Right. You just have to remember him in X-Men number 1 through 3.
Mm-hmm.
The Claremont Lee X-Men before Claremont left the book, and you remember what Fabian Cortez, and his effect on Magneto was, and as that relationship deteriorated going forward.
Right, and even another character in this issue was basically like, "Yep, falling back into old habits again." To see.
Oh yeah, Frenzy, one of the other acolytes.
Mm-hmm. So, and it was kind of making note of that, thinking one way, and I think even Magneto was like, because Magneto showed up last issue, and was kind of ignoring Fabian, because you have to know that he remembers and still holds somewhat of grudge, but because of what happened in this issue, he kind of had to acknowledge, what Cortez did. So Cortez kind of is trying to take advantage of that, but I would like to believe that Magneto is not dumb. At that being case,
Pretty much.
So, but yeah, just to kind of as far as this being a King in Black tie-in and what's going on the Earth, I'm actually kind of surprised they did this, but because there's been bigger events in the past that had no acknowledgement. Like the rest of the corner, like the X-Men overall doing this own thing, and and everybody on Earth or in some one section of Earth or whatever is doing their thing without no acknowledgement in the books that are not affected. Not a lot of times in it being the X corner of the books, because like I said, they're either doing their own thing, or you get some one-off line about, oh yeah, well they got a thing going on, or something. At least in this case, they acknowledge the fact that, hey, the stuff that's been going on in King of Black is actually still affecting them because of what happens. So they didn't necessarily have to do that, but the fact that they did, I guess, is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much much needed to be said about that. And there's not. Oh yeah, the only other thing I was going to mention was that we see a figure that looks like Cable in the beginning, and we see that same figure at the end. And there's also a notable note that Cable's missing. Young Cable is missing.
Right.
For one reason we don't know. We still not necessarily don't. Well, actually, I'm not sure if we still know.
No, we do find out why he's missing because of the last reveal page.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, is that I thought that same thing, but I also thought we know old Cable is still out there running around. So I was thinking that might have been him, but also but old Cable doesn't have the sword, so that's why I was like, okay, yeah, that must be him.
Exactly. He's still got the sword of Galador.
Right. But also there was another "Hope You Survive" reference, which also happened in the first issue too. Which was like, are they trying to make that a thing, or is this?
It's just a nice aside. It's like an in joke that we all that longtime X-Men readers are gonna understand. That's why that's how I read it.
Yeah, but I was like, but the fact that it happened in 2 straight issues, I was like, okay, that's kind of amusing. But that being
like
the
that's
case,
Al Ewing for you.
Well, there is that. So, But that being that was sword number 2, and I guess we'll go ahead and push on to the other Marauders book of the week, which is Marauders number 17.
Sure, Marauders 17, written by Jerry Duggan with art by Matteo Loli and colors by Edgar Delgado. The Hellfire Trading Company is making moves in Madripoor against Hominus Verendi.
Yeah, I like this issue. I mean, Marauders is always something interesting about Marauders is going on. Like right. One part of the book is
definitely. I was about to say Marauders is definitely much more in the intrigue business as opposed to the action and adventure.
Right.
There's much more to this. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're right. Because that's exactly right. But the two key things that happen in this book, like real quickly, right, spoiling too much anything, we get the first part where Callisto, who honestly I did not know lost her powers, and I was never really sure about what her powers were.
Right.
Even during Mutant Massacre and all that other stuff where she was like a factor. But apparently she must have lost her powers on M Day, and she's not had them all this time. So she wants to get them back, and the way you have to do it, you have to go through. There's a certain thing you have to go through.
It's the Crucible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To get them back, and she wants Storm involved, which is who's up until part of this book wasn't down with doing for whatever reason. And we also find out that Storm apparently is trying to leave Krakoa for some reason that we don't know about at this point. And the other part of that is the part where Agent 70 was talking about, where Hellfire Trading Company gets involved in real estate in Madripoor, partially because, well, not even partially, but directly because, and I thought this was a good way to tie this back in too. So because of what happened to Kate and Lockheed getting thrown overboard and getting saved near Madripoor, they went back to go help out the family.
Right, we find out how Lockheed survives that attack by Sebastian Shaw.
Right, which we found that out like earlier. I mean, we found it out a while ago, but
Oh, but we find out that he survives, but not exactly how. And now we find out how.
No, we did because they did tell him they showed.
Oh, did they show that?
Yeah, they showed him fishing them out back then and
Oh,
taking
I
care of
totally
them.
forgot.
Yeah,
Totally forgot. But Kate Pride repays the favor. It's funny that you mentioned Storm doing Callisto a solid in the Crucible and teasing what I felt was a move off the Marauders roster, like she's leaving the book,
right,
and possibly Callisto maybe taking her spot on this roster of Marauders. That's how I read that, or at least maybe that's what I thought was happening. You know, like kind of one taking the other's place because of the way this particular exchange went. But obviously, Callisto and Storm have their own history going back to the Morlocks, you know, pre-Mutant Massacre. I also thought it was cool that the Silver Samurai gave us a shout out and a reference to classic samurai stuff that's reminiscent of Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah.
You know, with the reference to the Kaishakunin. I'm like, oh snap, that's from Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone would know, it'd be he. So
exactly. I was like, yo, that's cool.
Yeah, but it's going back to the Callisto thing. I didn't pick up on that if that was the case, if that was the thought. But also, it's not like Callisto hadn't been in the fold already because she's already been working with. She's kind of basically like Emma Frost, like hit person or something like that, assassin person. Because even you see in the front of the, you know, in the flashback in the front of this issue, you know, right, that she's, you know, and it had already been established she was already working with Emma. So if that is the case, that is something that I'm you know, it's kind of a sad thing because, like I said, it wasn't like Storm was in the fold that much with Emma, the Emma part for it, you know, like she's kind of come and go one way or the other, so we don't necessarily know, you know, the full story on that part, but you know, it could very well be as you said, so don't know. But otherwise, that I enjoyed this book for a couple of different reasons.
It was definitely fun.
Yeah,
definitely fun. And as I mentioned earlier, this book is all about the intrigue because what's being set up is a meeting between the Hellfire Club and former members of the Hellfire Club who make up Hominus Verendi.
And so a few other humans.
What's that? Oh,
and
right,
a few
exactly.
other humans. Yeah, because it sounds like they're pretty much gathering everybody who's might have a beef with them. Well, because I know they said, Emma said something about, it was like, yeah, this party is pretty much for, well, at least what we get from the data pages, it sounds like they might be introducing the new X-Men, which we still haven't seen the votes for that yet. But also, this is a meeting with, like you said, Hominus Verendi, and sounds like other states that are with and potentially for, you know, any dealings with Krakoa. Right.
So we will see how that plays out. But yeah, it's, you know, if there's one great thing about this is that, and I heard, I don't want to say I heard this on one of the Marvel podcasts where, you know, I understand that some people have gotten a little frustrated with the Dawn of X expansion of the X books, and you know, I mean, we knew that was inevitable, one, that they would expand the X books into, you know, the various splinter books that they would, you know, that they've almost always done with the X corner of the Marvel universe. And I forget what the new age is, quote unquote. Do you remember?
The Reign of, I believe.
Oh, Reign of X.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the Reign of X is now you know, post 10 of Swords, and it's interesting that the X books, you know, being their own corner of the Marvel universe, really do have very distinct purposes. And that's really, you know, you don't necessarily need to read all of them to get the story, but if you really want to focus on certain aspects of the Krakoan life, the Krakoan government, the Krakoan wet works team, the Krakoan superhero team. If that's if you have very specific if you have a very specific focus or foci that are served by these various books, there's other books you don't necessarily have to read.
Right.
What we find interesting about Marauders is that it really does deal with the business side, some of the government side, and some of the intrigue, the let's not say palace intrigue, but the governmental or the inner circle intrigue that is running rampant in Krakoa.
Right. And classically, like the X-Men proper book would be the one main storyline. And even coming in on out of Hoxpox and Dawn of X, it didn't seem like it until recently that was the case. That it was the mainline book, and I can't necessarily point to one book that would have been the case up until now. But it sounds like they're starting to get back to where the X-Men proper book is going to be the mainline book, and then it kind of, like you said, everything is kind of compartmentalized into its parts of the Krakoan life.
Sure. We have X Factor being the death investigators.
Mm-hmm.
Right. As I said earlier, X Force is the wet work team. So there's there are different books for different books for different folks who are looking for different things mutant related. You don't necessarily have to read them all.
Right. Yeah. New Mutants still deals with the younger generation. Hellions, I'm still not entirely sure. Like that's pretty much another misfit team.
No, that's the Suicide Squad team.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, that's kind of also, X-Force's purview in a sense.
I was about to say X-Force is, like I said, X-Force is like the Black Ops team.
Sure.
So, but because it's not made up of the former villains, that's the kicker.
Right. Yeah.
That's the kicker. So that's what differentiates Hellions from X-Force.
Yeah.
That's what makes them more of the Suicide Squad style team.
Right. All right. Moving right along. We got one more book before we hit the rapid, or we're going to go straight to rapid?
We can go straight to rapid because we've covered like a big chunk of the Marvel corner of the books, and we've got some, believe it or not, folks, we've got some DC Future State stuff this week.
Indeed.
So I will spin it up, and we will see what we have in common.
Rapid fire, cuz.
Ejectocido.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see here. So we both, I believe, read the Chris Claremont Anniversary Special.
Correct.
I'll run through very quickly. The creative team it's all written by Chris Claremont, with pencils by Bill Sienkiewicz, Sean Chen, Diego Olortegui, and Brett Booth. Shout out to @TimDog98. And inks by Mark Deering, Roberto Poggi, and Adelso Corona, and colors by Chris Sotomayor, Rochelle Rosenberg, and Eric Arciniega, and Guru EFX. The Death Goddess Hela sends Valkyrie Danny Moonstar on a quest through time, facing off against those affected by the Shadow King, starting when the New Mutants were still at the Xavier School in Westchester. And then moving on to an FF story that was set before Franklin was born, to aboard the Starjammer while Binary is there, to soon after the introduction of Gambit. It remains to be seen how this plays into the ongoing story of Danny Moonstar.
Yeah, it'd probably be unfair to say that this was a Claremont greatest hits because, there's a few different things that wasn't touched up on. But as I said in my notes, it's pretty much a bizarre ride through some of Claremont history with Danny Moonstar up against the Shadow King. Spoiler on that one, but still. And of course, like Agent 70 said, it's all being brought forth by Hela. And yeah, it doesn't seem. I'm not like that last page. Well, one, as we talked about before the show, it was like, it was kind of a weird read going into it because of like what is going on here type of situation. But then,
absolutely.
But then it's like, okay, I'm getting what's going on here, just like Agent 7. It was like, yeah, we get, okay, I get it now. But, and whether, like you said, it's going to come up on anything outside of the revelation at the end, to, I guess, the new status, or Danny's current new status, or going forward status, I guess.
Right. If it impacts anything that comes up in the new stories.
Exactly.
But yeah, it was interesting. I relayed to Roddykat earlier that I may have to go back and read some of those New Mutant stories in Asgard to pick up on where this might be coming from, where this might actually emanate from.
Right. And I want to say, doesn't, well, I guess some of that gets picked back up in Fear itself, doesn't it?
Possibly. I'd have to look.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd have to rely on good old Marvel Unlimited for that. So,
So
alrighty,
I'll
next.
probably do the same thing.
Exactly. Next up, believe it or not, is Gwenom versus Carnage #1. This is written by Seanan McGuire and with art by Flaviano and colors by Rico Renzi. Unfortunately, this series seems to follow up on parts of the story left off by Seanan McGuire in the Spider-Gwen book, which means I may actually have to pick this series up. Gwen is caught on Earth 616 when Null invades, and Gwen's alternate symbiote is detected by Null, while the Earth 65 Jackal hatches a plan to connect the MJ of that universe to Gwen using some captured spiders from Gwen's costume. So I hate to say this actually does feel like an actual issue of Spider-Gwen that is crossed over with King in Black. It kind of sucks that this is how we have to get our Spider-Gwen, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, I like Seanan McGuire's Spider-Gwen, and I did not know she was actually writing this, but I'm still probably not going to read this.
Right. And that's, like you said, that would be my initial reaction too, but I saw that she was writing it, knowing that she writes the regular book. And there's actually a note, if you just flip to the back of the book, there's actually a note from the editor talking about how this is quote unquote serendipitous, that some of the things that Seanan McGuire left off as dangling plot threads, they could kind of touch upon in this King in Black crossover. So, they picked right up on the story, and that's kind of annoying to me. Next up, I don't think you read this. Future State Dark Detective #1.
Nope, not yet.
This is, believe it or not, I guess I'm going to spoil part of it. It's written by Mariko Tamaki and Matthew Rosenberg with art by Dan Mora and Carmine Di Giando Menico. The story essentially takes up where Tynion the Fourth left off and takes it in one possible direction, leaving wait, did you read the Future Batman last week?
Yes.
Right, but it's not a spoiler for you to know that Bruce Wayne's still alive.
No, not. As a matter of fact, I've seen that elsewhere also. But
okay, so that's essentially the big spoiler here. Spoiler alert. It takes Bruce's story in one possible direction. That's kind of the whole gist of this Future State stuff, and it leaves Bruce broke and broken, which is just another possible direction that the current storyline could go in. And Grifter continues to play a role with the Fox family. This kind of reminded me of John Wick 3, following up on the end of John Wick 2. Did you see John Wick 3 yet?
I have not seen Parabola yet. Or
Parabellum.
Yeah.
You should watch it.
Yeah, I plan to.
That's the list.
It's actually on the short list. It's like one of the 1, 2, but there's been some other stuff we've been kind of digging into lately that kind of put that off. But I definitely plan to.
Like Clone Wars. So
there's that. Yes.
All right. Next up, I think you read this. This is Future State Teen Titans #1.
Yes. In fact, these next two you're doing. Yeah, these two you're doing. I've definitely read these next two.
All right. This was written by Tim Sheridan with art by Rafa Sandoval and inks by Jordi Tarragona and colors by Alejandro Sanchez. I'm like, wow, we have really exported comics around the world because of the names of some of these creative teams are definitely well, at least this particular book caught me by surprise. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of and the next book too, there's a lot of and I'd have to do a Google search to see if these creators are in fact based in Spain, the way a lot of the more recent creators have been incubating, in this, in the art, um, in the artistic corner in Spain. I wonder if they're from there also. I'd have to
Yeah,
look them up.
yeah, that's a good question.
So, there's lots of new Titans in this possible future as Nightwing and Starfire try to lead the Titans in the wake of Titan's Tower yet again being destroyed. Nightwing seems to be going down a dark path with Red X in tow. This is the first appearance in comics of Red X. That's not a robot, apparently. So if you
Correct.
remember Red X from the Teen Titans cartoon, he's in the regular DC universe now.
Yep. And I guess the only thing I have to add to that is like, yeah, it's like they basically, so Nightwing and Red Arrow pretty much searched to demolish the Teen Titans as Agent 77, which I noted that also, but like, yeah, this place is always getting wrecked. Like, there's one thing you can count on, like Teen Titan. Well, the Hall of Justice is now getting messed up, as we will see in another thing, and Titan Tower. But also, like, they went in there looking for a weird construct of that I last saw in its own book.
Right.
And they still don't think about Future State is before we move on is like they don't really necessarily explain some things, like how they got to this point. Like, I don't know, like I asked you last week whether Death Metal kind of explained coming into the situation that better, and you was like, yeah, not so much.
Only that, and if you read the opening pages of these books,
Right.
they all say essentially the same thing, which is this could be just one possible future based
Right.
on the events, based on how Dark Knight's Death Metal
Excellent!
ended and created the Omniverse. So there's more than 52 worlds. There's an infinite number of possibilities. So
until the next crisis where they shuffle that up again.
Lord. But yeah, that's essentially what's happening. Speaking of do you have anything else to mention on
Nope,
Teen
good.
Titans? So Future State Justice League #1, written by Joshua Williamson with pencils by Robson Roca, inks by Daniel Enriquez, and colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr. The Future State League is made up of the Future State characters, and they are immediately confronted by the villains from the beginning of the Morrison JLA run. Gotta love it.
Oh, was it the LOD then too?
Yeah, the whatchamacallit, the without getting into all of the stuff, because they do reveal a lot about what happened to some of the heroes in Justice League, in this Future State Justice League #1, and what happened to the former Justice League. Without going into all of the spoilery details, they actually do relay some of the things that happened that made them decide on new rules governing membership of the Justice League. But yeah, if you go back to Morrison and Howard Porter's JLA run, the first villains in that run are these villains.
Oh, the actual villains. I got you.
Right,
okay.
actual villains.
Right. I got you. Okay. Yeah, so that I wasn't too familiar with who these folks were, but when they even touched on, I was like, okay, I see. Which actually kind of makes me.
You mentioned the first time they were foiled.
Right.
At the book, at the end of not the end of the book, end of the story.
Right. But yeah, and you kind of mentioned they mentioned that, which is like, well, why is this other character not involved in? If that's been but maybe that character will come along, or maybe they're never gonna mess with that. I don't know. But the only other thing else I didn't really have to say about this is I noticed a through line in some of these Future State books, especially reading this book and reading that Batman book from last week, and they say pretty much the same thing. And I'm guessing this is the mantra of it: the more things change, the more they say the same.
Absolutely. Plus a chance, plus a même chose. They're literally quoting Claremont in X-Men #1.
Right. So
That's
right.
so funny.
So yeah, right. So I'm guessing I was like, okay, so that's clearly going to be a thing, and it kind of already shown itself in Future State already. That is like, yeah, that is kind of a thing. But even with this all new, somewhat different, well, it's not even all new technically, but somewhat new, somewhat different Justice League. That still that monster still kind of holds together. You know, and actually make me want to go read, because I don't think I had planned on it, that Superman Wonder Woman book that came out last week.
Right. I only had a chance to read these 3, and I read Future State, Future Batman
Right.
last week. I didn't have a big chance to read it over the weekend, but I did have a chance to to read the, last week's Batman, just to see how they're developing Tim Fox and where that's going.
Right.
But I'm going to try to skim the rest of these and see what's going on, and see. I'm really curious to see how they, what direction they're going to go in when this Future State period is over.
Right, and we do know, and I know there's some news about it in the news section. I think we may have already had some in the past, but there's a couple of folks who's going to have something after the fact, but I guess we'll get there when we get there. I guess the last thing to say about that was about Justice League is like, well, one, also probably wanted to read that Flash one also, now that I'm thinking about it, but there's also a couple of backup stories, or there was a backup story involving Justice League Dark, specifically Zatanna, and I guess that's Detective Chimp, who, and they're kind of on a thing. We don't know. Well, we know they're on Earth, but we don't. It's magic based, and there's apparently some magic shenanigans going on. And I guess in this spoiler alert for anybody who actually cares, and I don't know if this was a thing in Justice League Dark already, but Etrigan the demon is inhabiting Detective Chimp, or this version of Detective Chimp. Yeah, and that comes into a play a couple of other times, and they're on the hunt for. They're trying to figure out some stuff, because some stuff happens, and that has something to do with Etrigan. And Etrigan's like, I'm not trying to be a part of any of this anymore for whatever reasons. They kind of glance over what happened, but they ended up essentially pretty much getting band back together, let's just say, within reason, and they ended up finding someone else who would naturally be involved with magic stuff at the end of this. For what reason, we don't know, but I assume we're going to get there whenever this pops back up. Anyway.
All right, and that's it for me.
Oh, okay. So for me, well, I guess I was gonna. Yeah, I'll go ahead and continue the Future State dealing with Green Lantern #1, Future State Green Lantern #1. And I'm sorry, I forgot to get the creative team on this, but Lanternless John Stewart and other ringless lanterns are getting their John Carter of Mars, or Freedom Fighters, on some planet against the God in Red and their army. So in this world, apparently all of the Green Lanterns lost their rings some kind of way. We don't necessarily get how, but we know it was not necessarily in an M-Day like fashion, but they basically just lost power, and something happened that they mention, but they don't mention what happened or where it happened. And John Stewart's kind of leading this ragtag team on this planet to try to help these people out, but they pretty much get overrun. It's weirdly enough almost actually, if you go back to Marvel's Annihilation, Agent 70, where with Nova and, well, to a point anyway, with Nova and John with Quill, not necessarily the same deal, but the overwhelming odds that they have to deal with, and they have to end up falling back and out, that kind of good mess. It's kind of akin to that.
Gotcha. I'm flipping through it now, so
yeah,
because I'm curious. I'm like, whatchamacallit? I've never heard of this writer, Jeffrey Thorne, but I have heard of the artist, Tom Rainey.
Yes.
He's been around for a long time, and he's got some solid work in here. And I'm flipping through this book now, so maybe I'll take a look at this. I just wanted to mention that it's curious that we know that there's at least one actual Green Lantern because of what's in Justice League this week.
That is correct. Yeah, so
So
and that's the other thing that makes this weird because all of the lanterns that show up in this issue, like John Stewart's got the main part, Jessica Cruz shows up in a backup, and so does Guy Gardner. And in each case, well, with the exception of the Guy Gardner's spoilers, he does have his powers at the beginning, but they pretty much cut to he loses it like pretty quickly after that, and has to deal with the situation he's in. And the Jessica Cruz back up, had already lost the power in her ring, but she's in a place to where she's as I say in my notes, she's pretty much getting her die hard on.
right, right, and it looks like she's getting some different powers.
Yes, at the end of it, it looks like that, which I don't know how to feel about that, but it is what it is, and whether it's going to be permanent or not, who's to say? Because with certain lanterns, that tends to change one way or the other. And I would imagine this situation, whatever, I would hope they're going to get into a little bit more about what's going on that, because I'm actually kind of curious from reading this. And yeah, like you said, going back to the Justice League, it's like, yeah, why is this one lantern still has her powers? Now, to be fair, what I know about this one lantern, which is the newest lantern, Joe Moline, her ring is a little bit different from everybody else's. Because I've been reading Far Sector.
Right.
It's not powered by a battery. It's not powered in the same way as everybody else's was powered. Now, also, and I believe hers had a limit to it. Like, hers was not as powerful as the other ones, but or it might be reversed. It might be as powerful as others or more, but it's not necessarily powered the same way. And it also had a time limit to it. Now, again, Fire Sector is still going on, and we don't know, again, what's going on in this at this point with, the state of the Green Lanterns. But I would imagine that's probably why her ring might not be affected because of the stipulations on her ring and the power they're in.
We'll see.
Because I know she uses when she uses her ring and she uses it for a good length of time, she has to rest for as much of a length of time. As opposed to,
recharging.
Exactly.
As opposed to recharging it with a battery.
With a battery, exactly. So that's probably the key difference here. That's why she's still powered.
Possibly. I mean, it's we've yet to see how that plays out, because if I recall correctly, the subtitling or the text that's in the book mentions that she restored all their power, so it's weird.
Oh, that she did?
Yeah. So it's weird.
Okay,
very weird.
Yeah, that is weird. So
it's future state. So
right, exactly. Yeah, and I suppose I'm wondering if they're going to end up doing the same thing they did to her. She's going to end up doing the same thing that they did with her ring to everybody else. Maybe we don't know. We'll figure that. We'll find out. I guess at some point when and or if that shows itself.
Right.
But let's see, the other Justice League. Well, no, actually, that is it for the future state stuff. And the one other book that I have is Darth Vader #9. So it's Vader versus Ochi and the Droid Crush Pirates of Bastoon, which sounds like a movie title. Apparently, Ochi is the assassin that apparently we find out later on in Star Wars history is the one that may or may not have killed Rey's parents. So that's why I guess that is a figure of some sort of note, but in this case he's going up against he was hired by the Emperor Palpatine to either humble or kill Vader on Mustafar after some other dealings last issue. So they're going at it, but apparently Ochi and these pirates that they was working with had some kind of deal in place that Ochi may not have told them about, and they kind of he kind of runs around of that, but he gets saved by Vader and gets used by Vader to get some hand with that Wayfinder that he found out. Now, wait, did you read this? Or were you planning on reading this? I'm sorry, because I might be giving away too much.
No, it's okay, because I'm so far behind that I'll probably have filed this away in my brain. It'll probably come back as a latent memory as I'm reading it. It's cool.
But basically, Ochi ends up helping Vader with some things, and they both end up going off to a planet that we last saw in The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh no!
Yes, or at least on their way to said planet. For what reason we don't know, because they were on the way there and got stopped by something else that happens, as things tend to happen in the Star Wars book.
Gotcha.
And that, folks, is it for me.
I was about to say, before we move on to Clicks of the Week, I'll mention that the reference I was coming up with is, as whatchamacallit, as the Legion of Doom. And which character is this? Is it Tio Morrow?
Oh,
Yeah, I
yes,
think
the
it's
one
Tio
that was
Morrow.
leading them. Yeah.
Yeah. He's talking about the Green Lantern. He mentioned he says that she united all the Corps just in time to solve Oa's greatest mystery. So I suspect that right. She doesn't. It doesn't come outright, and it doesn't outright say that she helped solve the mystery behind the missing power.
Yeah, I think that might be something different.
That's what's implied.
Right.
Because what else would be Oa's greatest mystery?
Well, no. Well, it could be actually something else. Because, like I said, that's the story I kind of actually want to see. And I don't know if that's going to come up. Because it could very well. Because she was pretty much on the outs of with everybody. I don't even think the other Atlanteans really know. Right. I don't even think the other Lanterns even know of her, or even knew of her before, whatever happens. But yeah, I'm halfway suspecting that the always thing is not related to this, but I have no kind of context one way or the other. So we definitely will see. Because even when I think somebody else was talking about her in this book, they were making it like she's like the greatest investigator, whatever. So kind of alluding to what you're saying, but I feel like that may or may not be something different.
Right.
But we don't know. That being the case, we can push on to Clicks of the Week.
Clicks of the Week.
And we got two Clicks of the Week, or at least one potential Click of the Week, and one definite from our other co-hosts. So from Dirt, he says Sweet Tooth, The Return #3 for his click.
That's cool.
And for Tim, he's got a potential of Seven Secrets #6, which, as we were discussed before the show, was a book I know we've brought up before, but I don't think any of us had actually ever read it, and I didn't know Tim was reading it until Tim mentioned this.
Right.
So there you go for those. You got yours?
I think so. I think I'm going to go with an old reliable, Immortal Hulk #42.
Fair. That's absolutely fair.
Because, like I said, it sounds very cliche when you're looking for something after all these comics we read over all these years. When you're looking for something to make you feel something, Al Ewing got me with that one particular panel sequence. So, Immortal Hulk #42 it is.
And on that note, I'm slightly torn between like Marauders 17 and, weirdly enough, Green Lantern #1 and Justice League for Future State.
Okay.
There was something weirdly interesting and compelling about both of those books, and like I said, I've said it earlier and I've said it previously. It's like, I'm not sure, like, if you're just coming into the Future State, and granted, they've not really given you much by way of like, hey, here's how we got to this point, outside of the fact of the blurb that you mentioned earlier about, hey, like, this is a possible future situation. But I would have still liked to have seen a little bit like what event, if anything, kind of led to this. Because even in the Justice League book, they were like, this is, it got this way for a reason, because of something or some things.
Right. And I think, obviously we know they're doing that on purpose to kind of tease everybody and show everyone a possible future. And, we all know their belated attempt or their their aborted attempt to try to launch the 5G line, which we all suspect is where Future State kind of comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just them trying to. It's funny how Roddykat mentioned this, and I laughed and filed it away. It's them just creating more timelines to later retcon.
Yeah. Because also,
that don't. Yeah, it's the ones that don't stick to the wall after having been thrown against the wall.
Right. Like, there's a weird Secret Wars quality to this whole thing, but not in a direct sense.
Right.
Like all the spin-off stuff, all the tie-in stuff that kind of happened during that Hickman Secret Wars, like this kind of feels reminiscent of that, but not like directly, because obviously a lot of this is not coming from. Well, it's between this and all new, all different Avengers type of situation. Like, it feels like it's just a mix of that. And yeah,
I'm thinking back on Secret Wars, like, oh yeah, we had so much fun with like Thor's,
mm-hmm.
And some of the other books. I mean, yeah, some of them were hit and miss.
Yeah.
That's not a bad comparison. I like that comparison.
Yeah, and yeah, like the stuff was out. There was some stuff that was in, but there was also stuff that was like, hey, there's some possible, some other timeline stuff that was like, hey, this is some stuff they could probably potentially come back to if they really, really wanted to, but they never have. Like Thor's.
I mean, they tried with A-Force, and it didn't really fly for too long, but they tried.
Yeah, and I really liked A-Force, so yeah, but that didn't happen. But anyway, not to belabor this too much longer. I'm thinking for my pick, I think I'm actually going to go with Marauders number 17.
Sounds good. That was a great issue.
Right. So there we go. And on that note, we are going to push over into the news section. But first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise including custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
I gotta do better about
What's that?
I gotta do better about checking the Twitch comments and stuff, because I see something Nightbot must have caught something. But anyway, I was just gonna say that, you know what, I have not been much of a skater, but I kind of actually, you mentioned skateboard decks, and I was like, I kind of want to actually check out. There's a couple of skateboard decks that I kind of want. I wouldn't mind having, but it'd be useful.
That's
not useful, but I'd put them on the wall or something, like something stupid. Anyway, folks, we are now at the news section of the night, and we start off like we do every week with the cinematic news. Starting off with Star Wars has given official names to the eras of the prequels, sequels, and more as Agent 70. Hold on, let me give you the. There we go. Put a close up on Agent 70. There we go. So now folks can see what you're holding up.
Right. This is the graphic that this story refers to. You can find it in the solicits for January 2021. So this has been out for a little while, but Roddykat is going to go further into the story.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you put that up, because I was actually good looking out on that. Let me get back to the news here. And Star Wars history, it says, has changed. So basically, this goes back to the timeline in question, and that and this came out during the High Republic um, interview or video that was out last week before the day before the High Republic stuff came out, like Light of the Jedi and the comic book they're in that we talked about last week.
Exactly. This is what people who read solicitations actually get, a little bit of news ahead or information ahead of time, because this is published in the solicitations for the High Republic, the first issue of the High Republic Star Wars book.
Exactly, and I feel like we may or may not have talked about a little bit of this in passing at one point in time in the past, but we didn't have it officially,
Right.
an official timeline as we do here. Which I don't know why I clicked that, because we've already seen that. So yes, so as you can see, if you're watching the video, you can also see the timeline in the article here. The High Republic, as we said last week, set 200 years before Phantom Menace, and we see that started from the High Republic point and going up into the Rise of the First Order, which would be The Last Jedi, the last movie. And I remember when I first saw this, I was like, well, why are they not showing the whole timeline? Which I get it. They don't necessarily have to, because they're trying to focus on High Republic and not necessarily go back to the Old Republic and that stuff, prior to that. Which, as far as I know, is still canon. Or at least some of it. I don't know about the MMO, because I know there's some licensing thing that I remember them going through well before now with that. So I'm not entirely sure if that stuff is still canon.
Right.
Or even the original BioWare Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic video game. But I guess that'll all come out in the wash. But right now we're on the High Republic, which I think has started off pretty well. And we got an official timeline, and as you can see from the timeline, where everything falls into place, and the movies and the TV shows therein that fall into place with each section of the timeline. We don't have the High Republic stuff left, because obviously that stuff's still coming out, but we do know Light of the Republic and the comic book from last week is in there. It's just that this is the graphic that we got, prior to the launch.
Right.
So Star Wars heads more than likely have already seen this, and because probably has a poster of it on their wall like you do.
It's their desktop wallpaper.
Basically. Like we joke now, I'm pretty sure I know a couple of people that has probably done that. Hell, I'd do it myself, but
Exactly. All right. If we're
up.
done with that story,
We are.
All right. Next up, spoiler alert for anyone who has not yet watched the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. The big spoiler appearance was such a big secret, it wasn't even in the script. That's how they kept it so secret. And that's the bottom line.
Pretty much. And yeah, and even if you were like I was partially spoiled on it, it was still good to watch. So if you haven't watched it and you are inclined to, you should definitely check it out. And I don't know what's taking you so long at this point. I shouldn't say that. Well, yeah, I can still say that's hard. But but yeah, you definitely check that out. It's quite cool. Next up, Marvel's Moon Knight, and actually this is a sequence of Moon Knight news we got coming up in this block. But Marvel's Moon Knight cinematography seemingly confirms Oscar Isaac casting. So Moon Knight cinematographer Gregory Middleton has seemingly confirmed that Oscar Isaac will be portraying the titular hero in Marvel's upcoming Disney Plus series. And I think there's been other, like, people have pretty much been running with that, and we have not seen anything from, like, Marvel Studios or Disney or Oscar Isaac himself on this stuff, as that I remember anyway. But regardless, in a recent Instagram post, Middleton announced that he would be presiding over the camera and light crews on Marvel's Moon Knight, and he also says in this same Instagram post, which you can see part of in the article, that he basically says, like, the sequel is out. It's an honor to be a part of introducing a new character to the MCU, Moon Knight, #Moonlight, who says, cinematographer worry about white costumes. Not if they are complex characters played by an amazing performer like official Oscar Isaac. Thank you, director Mohamed Diab and the MCU for inviting me aboard. So, that's kind of pretty much folks taking that, that
Yeah.
is indeed the confirmation. But as we will see in another story, that's not necessarily always the case, but probably still is.
Mm.
Next up.
All right. Next up, Marvel Studios' Disney Plus Moon Knight series has added an acclaimed duo to its roster of directors. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead will be directing episodes of Moon Knight, which will begin filming in Budapest in March, where Hawkeye and Black Widow have some memories. Previously, the only confirmed director for the program was Mohammed Diab, while Jeremy Slater is serving as the leader of Moon Knight's writer's room. Okay.
Yep. One other bit of Moon Knight news is Disney Plus Moon Knight show with also and see again, this is why people are going with it. Casts another key role, quote unquote. So it appears that that Moon Knight has cast another actor, according to the Hollywood Reporter, May Calamaway. My apologies for screwing that up. I can sound things out, folks, I promise. Has joined the cast as a yet unknown character, though the publication calls it a key role. So I'm going to guess that it's probably I can't remember there is a lady in Moon Knight's life, in Mark Spector's life, and I'm assuming that's her. And I can't remember her name right at this moment. But if it is a key role, that we can relatively assume that it's that. So that being the case, hey, Calamaway is probably best known as her role as Dina in the comedy drama series Rami, also featured in the war film The Long Road Home and action thriller The Brave. Still don't know who that is, but hey, there you go. Next up.
All right. Kevin Feige. I don't even have to say Marvel's Kevin Feige. All I have to say is Kevin Feige, people. Kevin Feige confirms how long the Disney Plus She-Hulk series actually is. I guess we missed this during the Disney Investors Day call, because he basically says that there is roughly 6+ hours of content, which in She-Hulk's case equals about 10 episodes of television. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, so
10 half-hour episodes. That is.
Right. We didn't necessarily miss it. It's just that all that other news came out of it that this kind of got glanced over.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because this is when all that other Star Wars and other stuff kind of came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. But I guess that's still good to know. Which is kind of funny that still news coming out of that.
No, I was about to say, the article actually says Feige spoke to IGN. That's where it comes out. Because while it was announced during the Investors Day that She-Hulk would be a half-hour comedy, he actually says in this IGN interview that it's about 10 half-hour episodes.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Right. All right. So good to know. And I think there was also some mention, he said something about we may have already talked about this, about how WandaVision, which is coming out tomorrow, the length of that is in relation to She-Hulk's.
Right.
So, anyway, why Secret Invasion is a Disney Plus series instead of MCU? Well, again, Feige's kind of talking about it. He says, we're interested in the political paranoia aspect of a Secret Invasion and really showcasing the stars with Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn. Two amazing actors that you want to have in any series, and we're lucky to have them, Feige told Collider. That's the sort of primary focus of that, and of course, it will tie into other things in the Skrulls in the ways that you've not seen before. But yes, anything can happen. That's still not necessarily explaining why it's a show instead of a movie, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. There you go. Next up.
So, in recent in a recent appearance on the Jess Cagle show,
Yeah, I don't know.
Anthony Mackie revealed, touched on some of the on the upcoming Falcon and Winter Soldier Disney Plus show, and also mentioned that Chris Evans wasn't originally going to play old man Steve Rogers in Avengers Endgame, and that they actually wanted to cast an old dude to play Chris Evans. And they brought in actors, and they're like, well, none of these, kind of look like how Chris would look like when he's old. So, and apparently, in Anthony Mackie's opinion, he's gonna be like, he's like George Clooney. He's gonna be 95 and still like handsome, So they basically brought in a makeup team and prosthetics, and my understanding is that they also used visual effects to. They did have a double for some of the skin and the body, and they used visual effects to kind of shrink Chris Evans down so that he looked older.
Right, I guess kind of like they did in the first Avengers for that last part.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Which because I've read that and I'm sitting here like, well, why would they even consider anyone else doing? Because like it's not like they haven't been doing prosthetics and stuff prior to this. So why would they even consider getting someone else to do it as opposed to him, unless maybe he didn't want to do it?
Right. Or they just wanted something convincing.
Sure.
Because skinny, I guess they didn't necessarily want to go the skinny Steve route, but that's what they ended up doing.
Right. But also would make sense given, given the character and that actually happened in the comics.
Right.
To a point. Well, actually, I take it back. When he lost the serum, he didn't necessarily go back to like skinny Steve, though.
Yeah, he just got old.
Right. So, anywho, speaking of this Chris Evans stuff and doggone auto-playing stinks, Chris Evans reportedly in talks to reprise a role as Captain America in the MCU, to which he himself has finally come out and said that's news to him in a tweet, but as we have said prior to the show, the Disney snipers are out, so it's not like he's gonna confirm it.
Exactly. He knows they're on the rooftops everywhere he goes.
Exactly. So him saying that doesn't necessarily mean it's not the case, and but according to this article from Deadline, according to this article from Deadline through IGN, they say it's unlikely that Evans would return to a full-fledged Captain America movie, but with the likelihood being that he'd make a guest appearance in another superhero movie, kind of like Tony Stark's, Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also the Deadline also reports that the deal isn't closed, but it's heading the direction of Evans returning to the role that he publicly said would be too risky to come back to. He said it's not a hard no, as explained in May of last year, but it's not an eager yes either. I think Cap had such a tricky act to stick landing in. I think they did a really good job of letting him complete his journey. So that's what he said last year, but again, never actually ruling anything out of his return.
Exactly, and I think the speculation of the multiple, of the Marvel multiverse, playing a role in maybe his reappearance somewhere, not
Possibly.
necessarily within the main Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline. Having that being a possibility, I think, raises the possibility, or at least increases the possibility, or probability that he would, maybe see a reason to come back without disturbing the finale that they gave Captain America.
Right, or even kind of wrapping back around to, and like we got a little bit of news on this also, wrapping back around to whatever ends up happening after at the close of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Right.
That being the case, moving right along.
All right. In technically Marvel news, Sony postpones Marvel's Morbius movie release again. Morbius, which stars Jared Leto, has been delayed once more from March 19th, 2021, which is disturbingly soon, to October 8th, 2021 by Sony. As reported by Variety, Morbius is yet another of the many films that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And fans will need to wait a bit longer to see Leto as Dr. Michael Morbius, the biochemist who battles Spider-Man in Marvel Comics that accidentally becomes a monster while trying to create a cure for his rare blood disease.
Folks, y'all know how we feel about Jared Leto from Suicide Squad. I believe that's pretty much notable at this point.
Right, but we also have a certain feeling towards the Sony movies.
Exactly, and that's exactly where I was going with that. So
I'd say I think it's a little stronger than even his holding anything against Jared Leto for Suicide Squad.
Right.
I think much more. Sony, give us back our characters.
Right. Although they did say, wait, wasn't there something in this thing? Yeah. Morbius' first trailer was released in January 2021 and revealed a surprising connection to the universe of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which, still goes with what Agent 70 was saying with Michael Keaton making an appearance. So we know it's tied to that, but that's obvious because Sony's got the Spider-Man license and they're in. But yeah, man, give it to Marvel. Collab again, Sony. Come on, don't be doing this. Don't do this. That's all we're asking for, and maybe not go with Jared Leto. But that's, maybe he'll do all right. He actually wasn't bad in that Blade Runner movie, but I wasn't for something about him I just don't like. Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out coming forward. And I don't feel like this is a necessary movie. Also, I will say that again. Next up, Ray Fisher clarifies Cyborg's removal from the Flash movie. Jeff Johns still with Warner Media. And I feel like there was an update to an update that I didn't see previously. But anyway, so Ray Fisher is, for those who don't know, Cyborg in the Justice League and have been calling out some problems on the set of Justice League loud and proud and strongly. And this has been an ongoing thing for the past, actually almost going on a year. Probably after a while, it's getting to a point to where one media is saying one thing and Fisher saying other thing against them with some receipts. So here, the actors posted a thread of tweets in relation to the Raps article that cited insiders with purported knowledge of the situation as the main source behind emerging claims that Cyborg has been removed from the Flash movie screenplay and that the role isn't going to be recast. The story also asserted that Fisher publicly stated, quote-unquote, that he did not want to be involved with the project via Twitter, which I believe he pretty much said that that's not true. And he basically further suggests that the Rap, changed their article, and then he flipped it back to talking about the studio. He basically said that he did not step down from it, as the article was saying, and that then he, like I said, goes to talking about the studio and writing and other things, directly dealing with like Walter Hamada, which we talked about last week, extending his contract with Warner Media, and that Walter Hamada may have been tampering with the Justice League investigation. So it's a whole thing, folks. And it seems to be going. Well, it seems to be still ongoing thing, even if you go into what we're about to talk about next with.
Right. So Warner Media responds to Ray Fisher saying it is time to move on, and that's a bad sign. Mm-hmm. That means they're trying to hide something because it sounds like all the Republicans. Oh no, we got political.
Oh, won't be the last time this episode.
Following its investigation into Ray Fisher's claim against Joss Whedon, Jeff Johns, Walter Hamada, and company, Warner Media has told the actor, as I said, to move on. They state that the Justice League investigation was conducted by an outside law firm and led by a former federal judge, a Warner Media rep told the Wrap. More than 80 people were interviewed. They have full confidence in its thoroughness and integrity, and remedial action has been taken. The investigation has concluded, and it is time to move on. Oh, that's a bad sign, folks.
Yeah, they're basically saying like, yeah, we're not trying to you like Agent 7 said, you know, like, yeah, all right, you messing around, we're not messing with you no more. And yeah, like Agent 7 said, because that was the exact thing I was thinking, like, yeah, they're trying to hide something. They're absolutely trying to. Will we ever find out what it is? Who knows? Stay tuned, because I'm pretty sure this is not the last time we're going to hear about this. Gal Gadot and Lindsay Carter share their experiences of playing Wonder Woman in a new video. So apparently they got together for a virtual chat on Instagram about their time playing Wonder Woman. Of course, Gal Gadot is currently playing the character, and Linda Carter is the iconic television version. If you don't know who Linda Carter is, I don't know what's wrong with you. What is wrong with you? Anywho, in the video, two actors shared their reactions to find out that they'd been cast as an iconic superhero, and Carter reenacted her response by throwing her hands up and yelling. She also spoke about how she was more interested in playing the role seriously rather than in a more cartoonish style. She quotes, Wonder Woman was not a cartoon to me growing up. I loved her. I felt powerful when I read the comic books. She added, my main objective was that women would love her, and of course the article seems to be still attached. The video is still attached to this article from Instagram, so I may have to check that out later. Next up.
All right, next up. So, although Wonder Woman 1984 has dipped into rotten territory on Rotten Tomatoes, and for good reason, that hasn't stopped the film from being submitted for every Academy Awards category. Really?
You knew they were gonna try it. You knew they were gonna try it. First of all, I don't think is that. Well, one, we've discussed this. If you go back to what was it a couple of episodes ago about that. Rotten Tomatoes is bunk. I don't give a care what you say. Them and it's a bunch of bullshit.
I don't care what the Rotten Tomatoes. See, that's the thing. Roddykat is definitely on the right track here. Not the biggest fan of the rotten degrees of rating on Rotten Tomatoes, because they involve all of these ratings from people online who I'm not sure how they got their ratings counted or their reviews counted.
And
but as a person who really wasn't a fan of the movie, I'm just like, yo, seriously. So you created a for your consideration page and submitted the Wonder Woman sequel for consideration in all 15 categories of the 93rd Academy Awards, including everything from Best Picture to Best Original Score. Okay, survey says.
Hey, look, you got to try it.
That's me. So I don't care about the Rotten Tomatoes score, because unless you're looking at what's frustrating about the Rotten Tomatoes score, and I don't want to dwell on this too long. It's what I said earlier, which is where they're drawing all these reviews from.
Right.
But I have so many frustrations with the movie that I can't even believe that they would try to submit for these awards. But there's only so many movies out this year, so not a surprise.
I mean, I can. Like I said, you gotta try it. Something's bound to stick with some of those categories, even if it's not the bigger ones. But as far as Rotten Tomatoes is concerned, that and whatever the video game version of it, which is slipping my mind at this moment, they can be gamed, and they have been gamed prior to. Like, yeah, they've been trying to take steps as to counter against that, because you got critic scores, and then you got like just random ass people doing their scores, and all that's aggregated together. And of course, with people who just don't like stuff, they will try to tank the scores on Rotten Tomatoes, thinking that's gonna hurt the movie. They do the same thing with video games, and it sucks, and I hate those sites for that reason. Because and the fact that companies are using those scores to saying, well, this is clearly a thing and this is not a thing, is really stupid. Like, especially in the video game corner, that this happens a lot. That's That's fine. You can think about. I mean, you can have that. But I'm just
no. Listen, I know that the video game corner of the internet and the world is heavily populated. So,
but it's still the same principle with Rotten Tomatoes and this because they do the same thing with
well,
movies.
If I don't know if they have like separate scores, like audience score and
yes,
and rating and whatchamacallit, like
I believe so. Yeah, they do
totally
have like
special ratings. Right.
Right. I believe
So-
that there is a critics aggregate and a like just a random person aggregate. I believe.
Right. So, I tend not to pay attention to the random person aggregate, but
I tend not to pay attention to either one, but just the fact that they're on Rotten Tomatoes as they are and the way they present it, like it's stupid. Moving right along.
I was about to say that's fine.
Yeah.
I
think that's
we
me.
do
I
it here. No. This is. This is you because I was complaining about the Academy Awards. Okay, go ahead.
Henry Cavill dons Reeves Superman suit and Snyder's hashtag Henry Cavill Superman photo. So apparently, wait, hold on. Yeah, I should recheck that. Anyway, excuse me. Man of Steel director Zack Snyder showed his support for hashtag Henry Cavill Superman by sharing an old photo of Cavill wearing Christopher Reeve's suit from 1978. I was going to make a dry cleaning joke there, and I was like, you know what? Never mind. Snyder shared the black and white photo of Superman actor donning the classic suit on Twitter with the caption, Henry Cavill is Superman. I mean, he kind of already played it, so I don't even know why you have to keep doing that. Snyder previously shared the photo in 2017, saying that it was taken during a screen test for the 2013 DC EU film. If you could put on that suit and pull it off, that's an amazing achievement, he said at the time. He walked out and no one laughed. Other actors put on the suits and it's a joke, even if they're great actors. Henry put it on and he exuded this kind of crazy calm confidence that made me go, wow, okay. Which puts me back to Hamilton, but I don't know why I didn't say it like that. This is Superman. So yeah, Zack Snyder's caping for Henry Cavill, which to be fair, Cavill's not a bad Superman. And I know there's been a lot of people who are like, why? But he wasn't terrible. Man of Steel
Jump in the lake, Zack Snyder. But anyway,
right, and also that, but also Man of Steel had other problems, and Henry Cavill not necessarily was one.
Yeah! Anyway,
yes. Next
up, there's no hope that Green Arrow and the Canaries will find a berth at HBO Max after the CW passed on the Arrowverse spinoff, according to TV Line editor-in-chief Matt Webb-Midovich. The HBO Max option was already thoroughly explored, I hear, especially as leadership shifted over there, and that is why the final cancellation decision took as long as it did. No dice. Green Arrow and the Canaries was a proposed spin-off of Arrow, which ended its 8-season run on the CW in 2020. The concept was introduced as a backdoor pilot in Arrow in January 2020, right after the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover of Supergirl, Batwoman, The Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow. Set 20 years in the future, Mia Smoke, daughter of Oliver Queen and Felicity Smoke, teams with Black Siren, Laurel Lance, and Black Canary Dinah Drake to save Star City, another fictitious DC city, from a new crime wave. While the CW chose not to pick up Green Arrow and the Canaries, Arrowverse executive producer Mark Guggenheim indicated there are still ways to tell their story even if the series fell through.
So, in other words, probably animated series like they did with the Ray and other the couple of them they did, I would assume.
I was about to say, or guest spots on these CW shows, like more Crisis,
Oh yeah, definitely that. But
Crisis. Yeah, they'll probably call it Infinite Crisis to bring in the future people. You never know.
Yeah, I still never really caught up to. I still need to catch up to the Arrowverse stuff because the last couple of seasons, I think I don't know what happened, but I do know what happened because they stopped really the CW channel here went changing some stuff and I couldn't really watch it anymore. But not all that stuff is on Netflix, so I guess I can at some point. But kind of sad to see this, but also Birds of Prey 2.0. Who's to say whether that needed to exist or not? I'm sure they were actually good at it though. It ended up good in a good way. And again, like it says, we'll probably see it again at some point. World War II, Justice Society World War II movie announces all-star voice cast. So, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Justice Society World War II stars Stana Katic as Wonder Woman, Matt Bomer as The Flash, Alicia Rotaro as Black Canary, Chris, Diamond Topopoulos, excuse me, as Steve Trevor, Omid Aptai as Hawkman, Matt Mercer as Owlman, Armin Taylor as Jay Garrick, Liam McIntyre as Aquaman, Ashley Lathrop as Iris West, and Jeffrey Everett as Charles Hested, advisor. Oh, wait, okay. And Keith Ferguson as Dr. Fate, and Darren DePaul as Roosevelt. So there you go. A bunch of names for this Justice Society animated thing that is coming out spring 2021, so soon-ish. Also, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that Batman Sword of the Dragon should be out next week, I believe, or actually this week. Maybe between this week and next week, depending on which version you plan on watching. Which looks cool. I want to check that out. Next up.
Alrighty, next up, spoiler alert for Star Trek Discovery. A certain person has been promoted to captain, a historic first for the franchise. So, spoiler alert. Was that?
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say spoiler alert for anyone who doesn't watch Star Trek Discovery or is behind, because none other than a former Walking Dead alum has been promoted to captain, marking Michael Burnham, played by Sonequa Martin Green, has been promoted to the position of captain on the USS Discovery. In fact, this makes the first time a Black woman has ever held a role in a permanent capacity in any mainline Star Trek series.
So, one, this was inevitable because Michael Burnham, Sonequa Martin Green's character, is pretty much the main character of this show, which was kind of weird that she wasn't already captain. It was being questioned at the time why she wasn't already captain then. Although, if you know what happens in the first couple of episodes of the show, you understand what goes on, which at least I have seen that part. Now I'm kind of behind, but it's still good. And I feel like, and I said because I feel like there's a caveat in that, because if you go by the fact that yes, in the mainline Star Trek show, as far as the star and the crew is concerned, yes, that is the case. But there absolutely has been Black woman captains that showed up in Star Trek. Famously, Madge Sinclair played two different captains. Actually, she played an unknown captain in Star Trek V, and she played George LaForge's mom in Star Trek Enterprise. But again, I see why they say it like this, because that is the case here. Like, as far as mainline stars and mainline folks in a Star Trek series, this is absolutely true. But there's been not just Mexico, but there's been others just kind of named or unnamed that have popped up in the series, just not in this capacity.
Just not as the lead, right?
Exactly.
Just not as the lead character in the lead story.
Exactly. So this is still historic, regardless. And I'm actually looking forward to catching up on Discovery, because I'm hearing good things about it. Next up, though, and that's the page on Magic Claire, but. Captain Marvel's 2's Brie Larson shows off her home gym as she prepares for the sequel. So apparently, she. I'm not sure. Wait, was this on Instagram, or this looks like some fan site, I guess. Larson provided a short video tour of her home gym, and says, "As you know, Captain Marvel 2 is gearing up. I can't say much about it than that." Because of Disney snipers. She said before taking the camera to her gym, which includes plates, kettlebells, medicine balls, a bench, and a rack, and more. "Quote unquote, I have a ridiculously really intimidating home gym," she added in closing. And I'm pretty sure there's some gym rats or whatever like, you don't. I don't know. there are some idiots.
I was about to say in the COVID-19 world, everybody has something that looks like a home gym. It just may not be, all that impressive.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously she has the means to be able to.
Oh, absolutely.
And I would imagine since she's got it, she's probably got the spaces, to be able to handle that. So I'm pretty sure it is good. I haven't seen this video to know. So, but hey, you can check it out because it's in the article in the show notes. Next up.
There you go. It's going to be a while before we see Ryan Reynolds back as the titular vigilante in Deadpool 3. But the long-awaited sequel will be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe when it finally arrives. Speaking about the project with Collider, why does it say Marvel head? Kevin Feige provided a substantial. I know, because it's part of, it's like, it's part of setting, it's kind of like the rule where, every comic is somebody's first comic, every story is somebody's first story, right?
Yeah, and somebody reading this article might not know who Kevin Feige is because they're just
exactly. But for us, Kevin Feige provided a substantial update on the status of the project, confirming its R rating. Feige also addressed the studio's plan to bring Wade Wilson into the MCU. He states it will be rated R, and we are working on a script right now, and Ryan's overseeing a script right now. It will not be filming this year. Ryan is a very busy, very successful actor. We've got a number of things we've already announced that we now have to make, but it's exciting for it to have begun. Again, a very different type of character in the MCU. And Ryan is a force of nature, which is just awesome to see him bring that character to life.
I guess.
It's going to be interesting.
I guess.
Listen, Deadpool's not everybody's cup of tea. It's amusing, but to a point for me, you know?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, what's that? I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I was just saying, I hate the fact that the X-Men are kind of treated as like super secondary characters.
Yes.
But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like I said, I am not the biggest Deadpool character, but I did enjoy that first movie a lot. I respect for that. I still hadn't seen the second one yet, and and Ryan Reynolds, I'm not like real big on him either, but he played the part.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it gets, and I think if there is any actual annoyance between Hugh Jackman and him, I can probably understand it, and I don't even know the dude. Anyway, going back to some news we alluded to earlier, which I don't know why I have it here instead of early on, but Falcon and Winter Soldier news. Anthony Mackie confirms Captain America title is still up for grabs. So actor Anthony Mackie weighed in on whether or not Falcon or Bucky will be the new permanent owner of Captain America's shield in Falcon and Winter Soldier. When asked if Falcon Sam Wilson is taking up the Captain America mantle in the Disney Plus series, Mackie confirmed that the role is still open in the MCU. No, we don't know that yet. He complied on the Jess Cagle show, whoever that is. The idea of the show, referring to Falcon and Winter Soldier, is basically at the end of the Avengers Endgame, Cap decided what he wanted to do going into retirement, and he asked me, I guess, his character, Falcon, if he would take up the shield, but at no point did I agree to or say that I would be Captain America. Which I feel like that kind of mirrors real-life statements that Anthony Mackie had said early on. But things change, times change, and so does money. But
okay. I was about to say, Jess Cagle apparently is, he apparently hosts a radio show on Sirius XM.
Okay.
And he's an award-winning entertainment journalist and former editor of People. So.
Who?
Exactly. Well, I had to find out because I was like, who the heck is this person that's getting this cool information?
Right, because even when you mentioned it earlier, I was like, I can hear it in them right now. So, and I would definitely, because I think this is not the first time that this person has shown up in one of these articles. So it is what it is. In the exclusive first look of the series shared at Disney 2020 Investors Day, Mackie's character Sam Wilson said, "The legacy of that shield is complicated," which is basically in that trailer that we're talking about. So yeah, there you go. We'll see what happens when that show shows up later this year. Next up.
Veteran soap opera actor John Riley, not with no middle initial, who also provided the voice for Clint Barton Hawkeye on 1994's Iron Man, the animated series, has passed away. He was 86 years old. Riley's daughter, Caitlin Riley, confirmed his passing in a post to Instagram. All right.
Yeah. As the World Turns. Okay. And he was also on that Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman shows back in the 70s and 80s.
Maybe he was one of those that guys.
Maybe. I kind of wonder. Apparently, he was also on Dallas and Beverly Hills 90210 later on. So, and Passions and Sunset Beach and General Hospital. So he's done rounds.
Okay.
Because I have watched some of the shows, but I don't remember him. Anyway, next up. The Boys star confirms season 3's production start. So apparently, actor Anthony Starr, aka Homelander, recently discussed how excited he was to get back to work on The Boys, and revealed when season 3 will likely film in Toronto, Canada. Starr confirmed that the filming will likely begin in February, and he says, "We haven't got a specific date yet, but in the not too distant future, within a month or so." Mr. Science Theater fans will maybe or may not appreciate that little ditty. Starr told comicbook.com. He says, I think because of COVID and because we're shooting in the winter, which is going to be a little difficult, it limits us to interior shots initially. So it's a very staggered intake of the cast to the shooting schedule this season. So there you go. Next.
American Gods Season 3 sees the return of many familiar faces. However, one god is taking on a new look to adapt with the times, as is the case for Ms. World, who is the godly personification of globalization. In Season 3, Episode 1, A Winter's Tale, Ms. World decides to present herself in a new form, with actor Dominique Jackson taking on the role. Formerly portrayed by Crispin Glover, the god used to be a white man in his 40s with gray-brown hair. World often wore a dark fedora, white shirt, and black suit with matching tie, but at the start of Season 3, the god decides to change things, taking on a new form. As Ms. World, the god is a black woman shedding the traditionally masculine clothes in favor of a pair of heels, a form-fitting brown dress, and gold accessories. Okay.
So what this article doesn't necessarily go into, for whatever odd reason, is that the actress who will be playing Miss World, Dominique Jackson, is a dope trans actress who most will know her from the series Pose, playing Electra Abundance, and she was pretty dope in that. So good for her and good for the show. But I know a lot of people have dropped the show because of everything that happened with Orlando Jones a couple of years ago or a year or two ago. So
Okay. I mean, I hate to drop this, but
Who?
but
What, you don't know Orlando Jones?
Not on Orlando Jones.
Oh,
The show that you were referring to earlier. I'm like, who?
right. You know, and I mean, I only know it because I was watching it with some people that I know, so that's how I know it and her.
Got it.
Next up, though.
Do I have this one? The Umbrella Academy?
Yes.
Okay. The Umbrella Academy introduces Sparrow Academy cast and a green cube for Season 3. The finale episode of the Umbrella Academy Season 2 ended with the shocking revelation of a completely altered timeline and the existence of the Sparrow Academy, including the very much alive but emo Ben. Just like the OG Hargrave siblings, we too had been in the dark about the identity of the rest of the Sparrows, but not anymore, as Netflix has finally debuted the cast of the Sparrow Academy, along with a detailed description of the characters they will play. Feel free to jump into this article. There's a lot of information.
Indeed. Have you actually watched any of the show?
I have. It's good.
Okay.
It is a pleasant surprise.
I've heard people say good things about the first season, but not so much the second.
I take it as a whole because I binged them both because I didn't catch the first season in real time.
Right.
So as the second season was out, I figured I'd start watching the first season and then just rolled right into the second season. You know, this is COVID watching. You know, this is definitely, you know, like the very, you know, this came out in the summer, like the early summer, midsummer, you know, like July-ish or June-ish. So we were still in the midst of like serious lockdown. So there was not much else to do but binge TV. And thankfully the Umbrella Academy was there. So I definitely watched the first two seasons in Okay, let's not say record time because we know what my record time is.
Yes, indeed, because you have put in some work on the binge factors. Yeah, I haven't watched this yet, but I may give it a shot at some point after some other things clear out. Tom
Clone
Holland.
Wars.
Say what?
It's a Clone Wars.
Yeah. So Tom Holland has hinted where fans can expect the first footage of the upcoming big screen adaptation of the video game franchise Uncharted. Yes, it's not a video game related, but we'll work with him here anyway. Holland released a simple tweet with the date 14/01/21, or 21, which is basically today. If I'm not mistaken. Well, actually, it is today. We know that, but along with a winking smiley face emoticon. While it's entirely possible the star is teasing another of his future projects, such as Untitled Spider-Man 3 or the Russo brothers' adaptation of Nico Walker's novel Cherry, it's more likely in reference to Uncharted. Now, I don't know. I don't think there was any other news about this that came out today, or unless I missed it. Because I don't recall seeing anything that came out today about it. But regardless, the film is set to arrive in theaters on July 22nd, July 16th of this year. So maybe there's a trailer that's out there that I missed out on today or something. I don't know. So whether it means this movie or whether it means something else, I don't think I've seen anything Tom Holland related today. So we'll see. Sometimes articles will be spitballing. Sometimes you got to go with that spitball because you never know. It's it is what it is. Shout out to Tim, by the way. Next up.
Alrighty, next up, the More Than Miyagi documentary memorializes the Karate Kid's Pat Morita, directed by Kevin Derrick. The documentary includes exclusive interviews with the Karate Kid's Ralph Macchio and William Zabka, Happy Days' Marion Ross and Henry Winkler, and fellow comics Larry Miller and Tommy Chong. The upcoming documentary will also include archival footage from past interviews with Morita, as confirmed by Entertainment Weekly. The article says that this is going to drop, and I'm waiting for this page to load. It's being annoying. More Than Miyagi premieres on iTunes, Amazon Prime Video, and other streaming platforms on February 5th, 2021. So that's cool.
So I just did a quick search. I see things talking about Tom Holland, and looks like it might be about that movie Cherry he's talking about.
Right.
But I've also seen a bunch of appreciation posts and stuff like that, so I'm not really seeing anything hard on that one. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, but yeah, that I had to put that Pat Morita thing in here because, so a lot of people may of a certain vintage know him as a Karate Kid. Some of others might have known him from Happy Days and that really stupid movie he did with Jay Leno. But there was more to him, and I actually want to check this out. Next up, though, filmmaker John M. Chu has announced that he's stepping away from the upcoming Willow series on Disney+. The series which is the sequel to the 1988 movie of the same name, was announced in October 2020. Chu was set to direct the pilot, Lord have mercy, and executive produce the project, which will see Warwick Davis reprise his role as Willow Ufgood from the original movie, and not Wicked the Ewok. I'm heartbroken to let you all know that I am unfortunately have to step away from directing Willow, Chu said in a statement. With the production schedule moving due to continued lockdowns in the UK and a new baby coming this summer, surprise, the timing is just not going to work out for me and my family. So, there you go.
It's too bad.
Yeah, indeed. Next up, the market is seemingly hot for 1980s TV vehicle auctions. We did see the story about David Hasselhoff auctioning off his specific official kit from Knight Rider, but also on the block,
according to Worldwide Auctioneers, is one of the 6 official A-Team vans used to promote the TV series at 1980s auto shows. The proceeds will benefit the nonprofit J. Cruz Education Center Career Coaching Academy. A variety of prop guns are included, but unfortunately not a cabbage cannon. And if you look at the picture, unfortunately, it looks like a pump shotgun and an old model of a Car 15, the carbine version of the M16. It does not have the Ruger Mini 14, which is the gun that the A-Team generally used in the TV show.
Hello. This is why I mess with my homeboy here for knowing that. You know, like that details, like that's the detail I didn't even remember about the 18, but I remembered a good decent about them old shits. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. And I think according to the site, the auctioneer site, like yeah, it's still both of those auctions are still going for, I'm not sure what the time is on them, but apparently they're still out there. So if you got that kind of cheese, you know, have at it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Fast. Oh yeah, so a little bit of Fast and Furious news going on here. This is a kind of a side favorite of the Comic Book Chronicles here.
It's a crossover. It really is.
It really is. Vin Diesel has discussed some of the rumors and revelations surrounding Fast 9, including the reason for Han's return and the possibility of the franchise going to space. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Diesel explained why Han is being brought back from the dead for the next from the next installment in the globetrotting billionaire franchise, which I totally forget that movie is not out yet.
It's which one? It's delayed because of COVID. It was supposed to come out earlier this year.
Right. Well, I mean, we're still early in this year, but yes.
I mean, earlier 2020. That
right.
Is.
Yeah, and I think it's supposed to be still coming out like spring, something like. But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So these explain why Han is being brought from dead, like I said, and seemingly killed off. Why he was seemingly killed off or after the character was seemingly killed off in Tokyo Drift. He explained the importance of his return, referring to Han as an integral character in the franchise. I can't say that I would dispute that. Quote, if you remember, he's kind of responsible for the away years of Dom Toretto, Diesel said, speaking about the connection between the character and Sun Kang's character in the movies. He's the one doing jobs with him in Mexico. He's the only one who knows where Dom is, and in many ways, the bridge for Dom when Dom comes back in Tokyo Drift. I would posit here that he's not the only one, because I think if you go with my dissertation on the timeline of Fast and the Furious mixing with Triple X, we also know where he was during those away times. Yeah. But you know what? That's another time. We won't go into that right now because I've said
that's funny. I also wanted to note that if you look on this IGN page, you have the IGN page up.
Yep.
The character posters that are included for this movie, the one for Han says "Justice is coming." I love that. That's awesome.
Oh yes, and as if you've been paying attention to this show, you know how many times Agent 70 has been saying "Justice for Han."
Absolutely. You know, and of all the character posters, that's the only one that actually has text on it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm filtering through them right now.
That's so awesome.
Tyrese is still involved. Yuck.
Listen, he's been there since Too Fast, Too Furious.
I know, but they've gotten rid of
hungry.
They've gotten rid of lesser character for Wesley. Again, we talked about it last week. I mean, I know Gal Gadot's going to bigger and better things, but they could very much bring her character back now that Han's back. You know.
That's funny.
Anyway.
All right, we're going to transition over to comic book news.
We absolutely are.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Peach Momoko's upcoming prestige X-Men series, Demon Days X-Men, will be introduced in a 6-page bonus story in King in Black #4, due out in February, according to Marvel. This will be the first writing and interior artwork by Momoko, who's known for her variant covers. The backup story, I felt like we had a similar story about this last week, but I'm bringing it up anyway. The backup story will feature Momoko's reimagined takes on X-Men characters Psylocke, Emma Frost, and Juggernaut. The intro story in the Prestige series will include concepts such as yokai stories, horror, Japanese folklores, and classic samurai tales, according to Momoko. So, Demon Days X-Men will launch in March and then will be released every 3 months following for it to, wow, 3 months. We will forget. I mean, it's kind of hard given that how things come out, or at least things have come out pre-COVID. And even now with certain books that's come out like either, every 2 weeks, or books much less stuff that comes out in a monthly time. We sometimes forget about what's going on in it. So they're doing this every 3 months. So we're like, what in the world happened here that in the last issue? But anyway, next up.
So in Reign of X news, this article that we're referring to from the Beat, when Marvel dubbed the post-Ten of Swords era for the X titles Reign of X, they weren't kidding. The line already includes 10 titles. This is what we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
There's already 10 titles, and now the publisher has announced yet another edition, Way of X. The series will be written by Cy Spurrier, with art by Bob Quinn, and cover art by Giuseppe Camuncoli. His name is misspelled in this article. No colorist or letterer were named in the announcement. The Way of X will follow Nightcrawler in an examination of some of the larger questions of faith and existence raised by the new status quo for the X-Men, namely the subjects of Protocol V. Here's how Marvel describes the series. Mutant kind has built a new Eden, but there are serpents in the garden. Some mutants struggle to fit in. Some mutants turn to violence and death. And the children whisper of the Patchwork Man, singing in their hearts. Only one mutant senses the looming shadows, snared by questions of death, law, and love. Only Nightcrawler can fight for the soul of Krakoa. Okay.
Which I feel like what you just mentioned, that whole quote you just mentioned, was absolutely mentioned in a recent X book. So I'm sure they just probably pulled that from that. But yeah, I mean, look, I love Nightcrawler, so anything that's going to feature him prominently, I'm hoping it's going to be good. Excuse me.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Talk about another direction for the X books to go to cover another aspect of the Krakoan life.
Exactly. And yeah, as you said, there's already been 10 books, and they had definitely got rid of some of them, and yet we're still getting more. And I think we even still got 1 or 2 that have been announced that are still on the shelf somewhere that's waiting to come out.
Right. Already now solicited twice.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully we'll get to see that book or those books at some point too. So we can get to and I'm sure at some point they're gonna probably cleave off some more. Anyway, let's see. Marvel Comics is celebrating Man-Thing's 50th anniversary with a series titled published under the Curse of the Man-Thing banner, and one of them will feature Spider-Man. Following Avengers Curse of the Man-Thing, Spider-Man Curse of the Man-Thing will follow Peter Parker and Miles Morales as they race through New York City when a villain named the Harrower steals the Man-Thing's powers with the intent to scour the globe. Bars. In the process, Peter tracks down Dr. Kurt Connors, better known as the Lizard, who may hold the answers to saving the Man-Thing. Those who know the touch of man, I don't know, I don't remember the thing, but y'all know what I'm about to say. Some of y'all do anyway. Here's some of the cover stuff, and that will be coming out March. Oh, excuse me. The April is when the Spider-Man, the Curse of the Man-Thing #1 is coming out, and the Avengers Curse of the Man-Thing will go on sale in March. Excuse me. Next.
All right. So, Marvel has teased that Miles Morales is about to embark on his own, listen for it, folks, Clone Saga.
Yeah.
Miles Alice is Spider-Man number 25 in April. I don't know why I thought Saladin Ahmed was going to leave this book, but it seems like he is on for this ride.
Which is fine with me.
So Miles Morales Spider-Man is slated to debut a new version of the controversial Clone Saga. Marvel revealed the new logo as well as a debut date of April 2021. In April 2021, things get wild for Miles, the publisher said in a statement, promising more information. Let's go! Series writer Saladin Ahmed wrote on Twitter. Okay.
So the Clone Saga in the Spider-Man mythos is, some would say, derisive. Would I think it would be fair to say? You know, some people like the Clone Sagas, a lot of people don't.
Divisive is a pretty calm word for it.
Yes, yes. It was the nicest way for me to say that.
Yep.
Because even when I saw this article, I was like, "Oh God, no, please, no." But you know, I like I told someone on Discord, I was like, you know what, I trust Saladin Ahmed and crew, so I feel like, and we have definitely seen kind of shades of some of this coming up in the book, so this should not have been a big of a surprise that this was coming. Especially with the fact that Marvel has been pretty much revisiting a whole lot of classic events. So this shouldn't have been a surprise one way or the other. But here we go. We're getting into it. Or we will get into it in April.
Right.
Spider-Woman's original costume returns in mid-2021, and I would postulate here that the costume's already been back because she's been wearing it in Salvage Adventures. But throughout her history as a superhero, Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, has been known by her trademark red and yellow original costume. That costume will make a comeback in Spider-Woman number 11. The costume change comes as an attempt for Jessica to quote-unquote return to normal, or what passes for normal in her life, according to writer Carla Pacheco. In issue 11, we see Jess setting aside her latest suit for now and gearing up once again in the iconic red and yellow costume, albeit with a few new touches and some surprises, courtesy of the always inventive Perry Perez, Pacheco said, reference to the series artist Perry Perez. So there we go. Those of you who didn't like the new suit will definitely be getting the old suit back. But again, like I said, it's not like
never left. Yeah, like
exactly.
you said.
So I do.
Yeah,
like
I'm not
that
that big a fan of the new suit.
Yeah.
You know, I've said it before on the show. So
yeah, like I said, I grew into kind of sort of dealing with her, liking it. But yeah, I was like at first I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird, but
that's not a Marvel Legends I'm gonna run out to get. You know what I'm saying?
Indeed. And if you're not familiar with Spider-Woman and you don't know what a suit looks like, if you've seen watching the video, you can see what it looks like on the cover. So, I on a side note, real quick, that I was on my stream, and I do Twitch stream sometimes, and we were talking about old cartoons, and somebody in my chat brought up that they put their son onto Spider-Man and Amazing Friends, to which I was like, yo, you might want to put him on to the Spider-Woman show that came out a little bit earlier, because it features Spider-Man pretty heavily, you know, pretty prominently, especially in the first episode, where in the first 15 minutes is pretty much just Spider-Man. And also put him on to the 70s, which this person was, I reminded this person that the 70s Spider-Man and Japanese Spider-Man are also out there if you want to hip your son up to that, or hip their son up to that stuff.
All right. You know what I was going to mention?
What's that?
Jessica Drew is wearing the red costume in all of Last Remains also.
Yep.
So it's even more it's even more obvious that the costume never really left.
Right. Like, because we've seen it in so many other places outside of her book. So, but anyway, Jane Foster returns to the spotlight.
No, I was about to say I got this one.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Marvel's King in Black, Return of the Valkyries creative team of writers Jason Aaron and Torunn Grønbekk unite with that series' cover artist Mattia de Ulis for a new 5-issue limited series titled the Mighty Valkyries. The Mighty Valkyries will center on the reborn group of Valkyries organized by Jane Foster in King in Black. Return of the Valkyries, specifically Jane herself and the mysterious new character who we all know is as the first of the Valkyries, who made her debut in Return of the Valkyries #1 in the new title. Loki, of course, will set Jane and her allies on a mysterious quest. All right.
So there'll be a Tribe Called Quest.
No, I was about to say, they might have a second breakfast at some point.
11sies?
That's funny.
Anyway, Marvel under pressure to retire Punisher character and logo. Voices calling for Marvel to retire the Punisher and or his logo following its continued adoption as a symbol of hatred and division have increased following the riots at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. last week. Multiple rioters were seen sporting a modified version of the iconic character's logo as they stormed the Capitol in an act of domestic terrorism. And thank you for this article for calling it what it is. We also, on a side note, we've talked about articles where the police has had the Punisher logo on either their person or on their cars, which was to very poor taste. And I think this article actually goes on to say that also. So yeah, and there's even an article in this. There's a picture in this article of, I guess, supposedly that I don't see it on there, but definitely yeah. And even some comic book artists like Jamal Igle have come out saying that it's time to put the Punisher out the pasture. The concept was corrupted. I'm kind of two minds of this because I kind of sort of agree, but at the same time, I don't know.
It's tough because the symbolism is one of the coolest parts of the character, right? The actual symbol, right? Because all you have to do is draw the silhouette with the skull, and you know who it is, right? And that's the worst part because it's supposed to be a very frightening image, and that's what they're trying to appropriate. That's the problem, right? If it was scarier to have pointy bat wings on your head, that's what they would appropriate. So that's really what it comes down to. And that's what's frustrating. And that's why I understand, because the character, and I've been a Punisher fan for a long time, but you have to understand that he is literally the character that does the things that the heroes are not supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to understand.
He's and there's been, in history, there have been folks who have done the same thing that the Punisher does, and sadly have gotten away with it. And realistically, the Punisher as a character should be in jail because he's pretty much a serial killer.
Right, and has been repeatedly, and that's always been, one of the sources of storylines. Because the Punisher is always under, the scope of law enforcement all the time, from his very first appearance till now. So, it's not like they're not trying to try him for all those crimes. That's what they miss.
Well, yeah, but as many times as he's even showing up in the pages like Savage Avengers recently, and they got a use for him, and this and that and the other. But even this, and granted, these are more ground level heroes, and the folks who are not afraid to get themselves dirty. If it was all that case, they would even be trying to do that on a more obvious list, but they don't because of reasons. But I was going to mention that there was a character from back in the 80s, and you know who I'm talking about, the Scourge of the Underworld, who pretty much also did that, but was also a villain.
Right, but he also didn't have the cool symbolism,
Well, yeah.
He didn't have that cool uniform. There's a couple. That's we have to freely admit that's really that's all they know. All they know is the symbol. Right. How scary it can be. And that's what's lame. So, they can all go to hell in a handbasket. I will put the symbol on myself and mow them down. You heard that, Google. You
And
know,
he also knows the legal ramifications of saying such a thing, so he can do that. You know.
So, I mean, but that's what it comes down to. It's kind of like what the Punisher. What's funny is that the Punisher would turn the tables on all these Jokers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's the same thing in the next story.
Exactly,
So,
and I was just gonna say, real quickly, like, yeah, we've also had stories where the co-creator of the Punisher was like admonishing these folks, where in just like a similar vein in this next story.
right, because at the end of the day, these characters would actually turn the tables on all of these seditionists and traitors. Jack Kirby's son condemned the rioters using Captain America symbols, and that's just disgusting to me that they would even think about that.
Right.
Like they would even think about carrying those colors. The son of Marvel, the son of Jack Kirby, spoke out about the Captain America iconography seen being used by Trump supporters storming the Capitol. Captain America, one of Marvel Comics' most enduring and iconic characters, was created in 1941 by the late Jack Kirby along with partner Joe Simon. When some were seen wearing Captain America's highly recognizable imagery during the riots at the Capitol building last week, Kirby's son spoke up about the disgusting and disgraceful use of his father's co-creation. CNN's anchor Jake Tapper shared a message from Neil Kirby on Twitter saying Neil Kirby, the son of Captain America co-creator Jack Kirby, was distressed to see some of the January 6th terrorist rioters wearing shirts with versions of his dad's creation corrupted by the image of the outgoing president. And he has a message to them that's a little on the long side, but it's definitely worth reading.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's, there's seriously, like Cap would have bashed all their heads in.
Yeah. Also sad that we have, as far as I know, anyways, we haven't seen anything along the same lines from Marvel proper, which also kind of bums me out. On either one of these cases, also, I mean, we did kind of see something in the Punisher case like previously, but even then, it was like kind of wishy-washy. So that's kind of sad.
Because the thing is, they have to sue the people who are violating the copyright, so they have to find out where those shirts are coming from.
Right.
That's
well, I mean, but even just saying something like, "Hey, we don't condone the use of X, Y, Z's ABC," we haven't seen anything along that lines either.
Well, Perlmutter.
Yeah, and there you go. That's exactly the problem. But hopefully that'll get taken care of at some point also. But on to other news though. Hasbro Marvel Legends She-Hulk figure available for pre-order.
This is a cool thing.
Yes, it is, and it's not Gray Hulk. It is
No,
She-Hulk.
it's a repaint of that gray She-Hulk.
Right. So yeah, we got a brand new Marvel Legends She-Hulk feature, which she's had at least one or two more, as one of which Agent Savage just mentioned. Has been announced for pre-order this afternoon on Pulse, as well as other retailers. You can see the pictures here on the video if you're watching the video version, and it looks good. And I'm probably going to get one. Obviously, you got the show coming up, so it was a good time for them to put another one out, and all of the places you would expect, like Hasbro Pulse, Best Buy, Big Bad Toy Store, and Entertainment Earth. You can definitely pre-order from there.
It's up on Amazon as well.
Yes.
I would also mention that it kind of coincides with the most recent developments of the She-Hulk character in the Avengers book. She doesn't necessarily have that gigantic build, but she definitely has a much more streamlined Hulk look, as opposed to that the Gray Hulk that they originally based this figure on.
Right, because coming out of Empire, they pretty much low-key dealt with that. Right, and actually, we still hadn't seen that one shot that's supposed to be mentioning some of that also, Immortal She-Hulk yet. But I know it's still coming. Is it?
Yeah, it came out a long time ago. We all read it.
Wow, I don't even remember it. Okay, I'm gonna need to go back and read it then, because I don't remember reading it. Regardless,
Marvel Limited.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, like I said, I don't remember it then. So
Hey, listen, we read a lot of books, folks.
yeah, but I feel like I would have remembered reading that one. But then again, I'm probably, and those, like you said, we do read a lot, so I don't know. Could be slipping on that.
September 23rd, 2020.
Huh. Weird. I totally don't remember that. So yeah. Anyway, this series, this is out, and again, like I said, like Agent 7 said, it's out on Amazon also. So if you are so inclined, check it out. I probably will pre-order this one actually.
Sounds good. All right, next up, Arcade 1-Up is releasing X-Men and more cabinets. Oy, oy, oy.
Yay!
I have not yet gotten one of these cabinets. It makes me think I got to move into a suburban McMansion to have a game room. Old school arcades are mostly gone, but the arcade cabinet still holds a special place in the hearts of many like us olds. For those wishing to recapture a little piece of the early 90s, come on, 80s folks. Arcade 1-Up has announced its line of arcade cabinets will soon include X-Men. The lineup of upcoming cabinets announced at CES 2021 and listed on Arcade 1-Up's website include classics like X-Men, Dragon's Lair, Killer Instinct, and more. Also on the way are a new line of Legacy Edition arcade cabinets that will showcase some of the best games from Atari, Bandai Namco, and Capcom. I understand that the X-Men cabinet is also going to include Captain America and the Avengers, as well as another like kind of multiple character game. I forget which one.
Well, I believe Turtles already has one, so probably it's not that one.
No, I'm talking about Marvel.
I know, but I'm trying to think of what else would it be.
Other game, right? I'm trying to think of what other game is piggybacking on this particular cabinet. I did read something about that.
So yeah, if you don't know what
I know, I found it. It's Captain America and the Avengers and Avengers and Galactic Storm.
Oh right, I totally forgot about that one.
That's it. That's the third game that's included with that.
Right. Captain America. Oh yeah. So those I'm kind of with you about the space situation, but also I have a MAME emulator, so I could probably do the stuff anyway. But it would be cool to have a cabinet with this stuff in it. And if folks don't know, Arcade 1-Up does arcade cabinets, but they're like slightly scaled down. They're probably like maybe a third smaller of the actual arcade cabinet. Even if you even know what arcade, because I know some of y'all are young and don't even know what an arcade machine is.
I was about to say, luckily, I've had a chance to play on some of them thanks to Arcade 1-Up having booths at both Toy Fair. The one time I was able to go to Toy Fair thanks to PCN_dirt, and at New York Comic Con, they featured heavily over the last couple of years. Not last year, obviously, but they've had the cabinets there, and I've played the Street Fighter / Marvel vs. Capcom and Marvel Superheroes cabinets. And yes, it's a little cramped. There's not a lot of elbow room if you're playing against another player, but it's still a great experience.
Indeed. And yeah, they even sell them. Hell, if you got a Walmart, I know they sell some of them there. I can't remember if they're like out on the show, but they definitely you see like little stands for them. Actually, no, you'll see a little stand for them, but I don't think they're like out there because it's playable, obviously. But yeah, Arcade 1-Up does that stuff. They also have this one board game sit-down cabinet for board games. I think they're working on too, which is really cool. I would really love. I would put that in my living room, even if I didn't have anybody to play with. But space also is consideration, so there's that. But yeah, check that out at your leisure. They're not really too terribly expensive, but they're a little pricey. Anyway, Lucasfilm Games. Actually, I'm going to take both of these next two, if you don't mind.
Fine.
Lucasfilm Games. I know Agent 70 not real big on the video games, but still, So, but these are connected. Lucasfilms returns as the official home of Star Wars games and more. And I forgot to put this in the article in here also, but there was also Bethesda at the same time that this came out, that Bethesda is revealing a new Indiana Jones game who's going to be made by the Wolfenstein Studio Machine Games. So that ought to be interesting. But the only thing I have to say about this is so Lucasfilms, it's a weird thing with them. So in October 2012, Disney dropped the roughly $4 billion to acquire Disney, Lucasfilm, and the Star Wars Multimedia Empire. 6 months later, in April 2013, it pulled the plug on LucasArts, which is not the first time that has happened. That LucasArts had gotten out of the video game business, by the way, or Disney for that matter. but they did it because they wanted to clean house so they could put it back under the umbrella. An exclusive deal to make Star Wars video games were made with EA, Electronic Arts, later that year. A relationship that still, by some estimates, has not gone smoothly as expected because of things happening with some stuff that they put out. But now, Disney announced that a new era of storytelling in Star Wars and beyond that will take place under the revived Lucasfilm Games banner. And this is cool, but also, as I was about to say, that this is also a thing that we've been through before with both Lucasfilm and Disney, and they've gotten out, like they've come in for a little while and then just kind of happens to get out for some reason. So I'm hoping this time they actually stick a little bit more, and not pull games and whatnot, and like they've done a couple times in the past. So, but nevertheless, yeah, this is stuff, and they already got some stuff lined up, including the aforementioned Indiana Jones game from Bethesda, and also with this next story, Ubisoft, massive creators of open world games, The Division and The Division 2, and other stuff, will be making an open world Star Wars game. Obviously not much is known about it outside of the fact that it's going to be Ubisoft massive, and it's going to be open world, and it's going to be under the revived Lucasfilm video game banner. So I guess we'll get more of that come E3 this year, whatever E3 ends up being this year. Next up.
All right, the game you know and love is coming back on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and more. Rediscover Scott Pilgrim, the video game. The beloved 2D arcade-style beat-em-up inspired by the iconic comic book series and movie. It's available January 14th, 2021, as in right now.
Yep, it came out today as of this recording.
Right, this complete edition includes the original Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, as well as its original DLCs, the Knives Chow and Wallace Wells add-on packs.
Yeah, so as I just haven't said, and this thing says it's a cool beat 'em up in the vein of, if you ever heard of a little game called River City Ransom, which it takes heavily from, but also beat 'em ups like Final Fight and Streets of Rage, that kind of stuff. So I definitely got it, and it's $15. So if you, like me, bought the original version of this and was like, why am I going to double dip? It's on the Switch now, in other places, and they took it off the market like a few years ago because some odd reason, I think it may or may not have to do with licensing. So also look forward to maybe a stream of that coming forward from someone on this panel, in maybe a couple of days. Next up, Steve Lytle, classic Legion of Superheroes artist, has died at age 61. So Matthew Lytle, Steve Lytle's son, made the announcement on his father's Facebook account, saying, "This is Matthew Lytle, Steve Lytle's son. This morning my father passed away from cardiac arrest. I wish to thank all of you for your friendship to my father, and also ask that if you are a Patreon follower, please cancel your account, as we are just beginning to take care of his affairs." So, which I did not know he had a Patreon account, but there you go. So, like I said, Steve Lytle, like this article says, most known for Legion of Superheroes artist, but he apparently also started doing some AC Comics and was also a part of the creative team that killed Legionnaire Karate Kid, who I still don't know too much about. He also did cover artists for, the Marvel's classic X-Men title, which was pretty much the reprinting old X-Men stories. I do remember that because I used to collect those too.
Right, when it wasn't Arthur Adams.
Right.
So yeah, that's one of those names that I didn't recognize, but I see his work and I'm like, oh, I do remember some of that stuff.
Right.
There's a Legion cover that that I remember seeing, like, oh, his work was very good, and he died way too young. So
yeah, indeed. So condolences to his family and friends for and all of that.
Absolutely.
Next up.
All right, next up, Jeff Lemire has announced that he's working with artist Doug Mahnke on a secret series for DC's Black Label imprint. Revealed in his newsletter, Lemire said he and Monkey originally talked about working together over a decade ago, with the plan finally coming to fruition. Okay.
Yay. Yeah, I don't think we don't know what it is, but it's fine. Anyway, next we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but not to this extent. And I know we've had stuff behind us in the past, but DC has introduced the next Batman. Now they explain who he is according to this article. So in the current Flash Forward DC event Future State, Tim Fox has taken over the mantle of the Dark Knight with a moniker as the next Batman, which is still weird to me. His path to becoming Batman will now be told in an in-continuity digital-first series titled The Next Batman, Second Son. Debuting February 23rd, the 12th chapter, The Next Batman, Second Son, will be written by the returning John Ridley and joined by a new art team of Tony Akins, Travel Foreman, and Mark Morales. So yeah, I feel like we had talked about this before, with the stuff that John Ridley is doing. It's the other side of DC history that he's doing. This in small strokes, but also the Future State book that came out last week that he wrote. So this is all pretty much in that. Next up,
Robin will be the latest new ongoing series launch for DC's Infinite Frontier reboot / refresh. The new series by writer Joshua Williamson and artist Gleb Melnikov launches Tuesday, April 27th, and interestingly will star Batman's son Damian Wayne in his brand new Darker Duds and not Tim Drake. Tim, the former star of an ongoing series that ran 183 issues over 15 years, was the Robin who got his own Future State 2-issue series. Future State is serving as an inspiration for many of DC's subsequent Infinite Frontier launches and series refreshes. Okay.
Yeah, and as this article notes that Damon doesn't appear to have a presence in Future State, which for some odd reason, so whatever, I guess we know why. Adult graphic novel sales figures revealed nearly 30% jump in 2020, which I read this article and was like, adult graphic novels, and then I realized they're talking about manga.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like, is that what we're calling them?
How I read adult graphic novels.
Right, exactly. And I'm sitting here like, what, really? Is that what we're calling manga now? But according to this article, 16.2 million adult graphic novels were sold in print in 2020, according to a report from the publishing tracking service NPD. With those sales led by My Hero Academia, the adult graphic novels portion of the North American book industry jumped 29.1% compared to 2019. And then you get the top 10 list of the books, and definitely out of those top 10, My Hero Academia is like half of that list, with Demon Slayer coming in with at least 1 point, which I still need to watch that. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. I know people like them so from My Hero Academia.
What else is on the list? I'm pulling it up now. I'm curious.
But I'm saying top 10 is pretty much mostly manga. And specifically, My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer. I don't know these other two books, but there's also a book in here, which I assume is manga, which is a Junji Ito book. And I don't know this first one because I've never heard of it before. But
yeah, what is this? The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse? We're absolutely exhibiting our ignorance of this.
Mm-hmm.
No idea what this is.
It says from British illustrator, artist, and author Charlie Mackenzie comes a journey for all ages that explores life's universal lessons, featuring 100 color and black and white drawings.
Okay.
And then it just kind of goes into the description of that. So yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like manga, but actually in some sort of graphic novel.
Yeah, this is definitely more like a classic graphic novel. I'm just clicking through the images that are shared on the Amazon page for this book. Not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of narration, but it's really more of a traditional graphic novel style.
Right, but yeah, as of the top 10, like I said, the crux of it is manga.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say more than the main focus. It's like, what is it, 8 out of 10 or something like that, 7 out of 10?
Yeah, I don't know what that Strange Planet one is either, but we would assume it's like that first one we were just talking about. And even this article kind of says, breaking down the adult graphic novels category further, manga was the subcategory with the highest year-to-year growth. 2020 saw a 43.7 increase over 2019 because I guess for possibly obvious reasons, but also mangas have been getting bigger and bigger in the last 4 or 5 years, or one would say. So that's not that big of a surprise. But yeah, there you go. There's that.
Let's say Strange Planet is definitely a little bit more of the graphic novel style that we're used to.
Gotcha.
But definitely a much more simplistic art style, but definitely telling a story. Interesting stuff.
Cool. Last but not least, our last story of the night. The 6th annual Dwayne McDuffie Awards for Diversity in Comics finalists have been named. The finalists for the 6th annual Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity in Comics have been named, with a winner to be announced in February during Black History Month. The award is meant to honor the commitment to excellence and inclusion, both on the page as well as behind the scenes, in honor of the late comic book and animation writer, editor, producer Dwayne McDuffie. The finalists are They Called Us Enemy by writers George Takei, Justin Eisinger, Stephen Scott, and illustrated by Harmony Becker from IDW. Excellence by writer Brandon Thomas and artist Kari Randolph. We're familiar with that. From Truth with Truth by writer-artist Lawrence Lindell. That's self-published. Angola Janga, Kingdom of Runaway Slaves by writer-artist Marcelo de Salette from Fantagraphics. And Ianu, Child of Wonder by writer Roy Okupe and artist Godwin Akpan from Unique Studios. Congratulations on being nominated and being finalists. Yeah, which I've heard of that Unique Studios from another one of those books that I'm pretty sure I still haven't read yet, but I remember seeing something from a free comic book day from them. So, but anyway, yeah, that is very much cool, and I would imagine when the finalists, when things are rewarded next month, we will probably more likely report on it. And that, folks, is the end of the news section. I've got one more ad read.
Our last ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink Wines through CSPN. Do it today.
And as we come to the end of another episode of the Comic Book Chronicles, we'd like to thank each and every one of you folks for coming out, whether it be for the recorded live recording or in the audio form thereafter. I have been, actually, I'll go ahead and get this out of the way before I even do that. Next week, 400th episode, folks. It's been a long road. Exactly. 400. And again, like I said earlier, that's kind of give or take some other stuff that's kind of out there. But this is our official numbering that definitely puts us past 400. We're fairly certain about that.
I love how we equivocate with this now.
Yeah,
but seriously, 400 episodes in, folks. Help us celebrate next week.
Absolutely. And we're going to have a special guest, and hopefully If not most, well, most if not all of the crew back together. Voltron will be formed in some sort of way.
Let's hope. I will cue up the sound effect.
Indeed, indeed. So yeah, we will have a special best guest, a friend of the show. We can safely say here, and also some of you who have been around with us for a long time will definitely know this person. Classic, aka the founder of, formerly known as Classic Materia, but Classic, also known as the founder and head of, the former head of the Coleslaw the Podcast Network. So look forward to that next week. That being said, I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_dirt on Twitter. PopCultureNet on Twitter. PopCultureNetwork.com and all those umbrella sites therein. And probably also on Byte, the Vine replacement. As comic reviews, no vowels. Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, the Osiris ish. You can also find him at CB Cron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. The Click Nation on Twitter, theclicknation.com. That's TheKlickNation, all one word. But also you can see him over on Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. This here program you can find on, which I'm almost pretty certain I forgot to do earlier in the show. You can find on the Coleslaw the Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this on your podcast personal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or the Coleslaw the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Remember to like, subscribe, and leave us some 5-star reviews.
There it is. Do all of that. Any of it and all of that. You can also catch us here every Thursday night, where we record live 9:30-ish p.m. on the previously mentioned YouTube channel of the Click Nation. Excuse me, that's youtube.com/theclicknation. But also on twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. Definitely give us a follow over there so we can get up to 50 and do some upload some other stuff that we can share with you folk.
Right, make sure to subscribe so you get the notification that we're on.
Absolutely, and thank you to the person I followed earlier, whom I know of from Discord. So I appreciate your Cap from doing that, if you're still around, which I'm not sure if he is, but regardless. And yeah, if you have questions or anything, actually, you can put them in said chat on Twitter and YouTube, which I probably should do better about checking both of those now that we have this set up. But regardless, or, on the Twitter as CB Cron, or, our individual, things. We don't mind answering comic book questions.
Absolutely.
Or life questions. I don't know. That being said, folks, be here next week, like I said, for the 400th episode and all the merriment therein. Hopefully it will be a good time for you and those. And of course, the aforementioned, well, not aforementioned because I didn't mention them this time, but I did mention the fact that we have our end of the year discussion coming up. And also, I'm probably going to actually put out a treasury-like edition for the Mandalorian Season 2. In audio form. I'm not sure if I'm going to mess with the video, but I can, we'll see about that.
Sure.
That being the case, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
Wakanda forever!
Good evening, Rick. Would you believe